Today is the entrance day at the Demonic Academy. This place only opens its gates once every 10 years, for 4 years. 6 brutal stages, 1 shot at each test. Fail a single one, and you're done. Sent off to the fields and labor camps for the rest of your life. This is where the next generation of monsters is forged. And standing at the very front, the 6 heirs of the 6 great clans, children of the cult lord himself. A man ranked among the 5 strongest martial artists alive. From the Dark Clan, ranked number 1, Miu Young. From the Sword Clan, number 2, Chung Yuan. From the Spring Clan, number 3, Miu Chun. From the Poison Clan, number 4, Zhong Song. From the Blade Clan, number 5, Yu Qian. And from the Sound Clan, number 6, the only girl in the room with moisty lips, Go Wang Ho Ryu. 6 prodigies raised from birth to kill. But there's supposed to be a 7th? The 7th prince is an illegitimate son, a bastard the clans would rather pretend doesn't exist. And right now, he's stuck outside the gate. Because somehow, conveniently, nobody can find his badge. The black tag with the number 7 on it is gone. He knows exactly what this is. One more little game from the 6 clans to keep him out and embarrass him before he even walks through the door. But he swallows it and waits. Picking a fight on day 1 helps nobody. When they finally let him in, he gets shoved all the way to the back. The whispers start instantly. Then the trumpets sound. The cult lord arrives, and the whole courtyard buckles under his presence. He gives the speech. "You are the future of the cult. Train hard, become our strength." And the crowd eats it up. Then his eyes drift to the back, to his bastard son. He looks right at him and turns away like nothing. The kid isn't even surprised. He's his father, but he's the same man who didn't show up when his mother died. Speech is over. Time for the first test, day 1. Right now. The rules are simple and brutal. The Sound Clan elder plays her instrument, a weapon made of pure sound and energy. Survive 1 full minute and you pass. Fail and you're out of the academy on day 1. She starts playing, and it's carnage. The weaker kids get blasted off their feet almost immediately, blood leaking from ears. Even the 6 clan heirs, kids with 20 years of practice packed into their bodies, who at first tried to keep it calm, are now gritting their teeth just to stay standing. And the elder? She's getting angrier by the second, because there's one kid she expected to drop first. And he's just standing there, completely fine, not even sweating. He's completely confused. Half of the people were already on the floor, but he wasn't feeling anything. But a voice inside the boy's head says, "Sensing powerful, low-frequency sound waves. I turned off your body's capacity to react to sound, to avoid internal damage." One of the elders notices that the sound lady is getting upset and cranking up the difficulty. Her pride can't take it. So she does. He pranks it up even more. Ears are exploding, and even prodigies are dropping. The guy who's plotting against our boy is confused by the intensity of the sound elder. He looks behind and makes a surprised face. Every other descendant gets curious because of that, and they all turn to look back, just to see the Chad standing on business like nothing. Our boy observes everyone's reaction, and even though he can't hear them, he's sure they're not happy. The problem is that he doesn't really have energy, so theoretically this will only make things harder. So he does something risky. He asks Nano to give him an internal injury. While this happens, the old hag keeps going crazy. She pours half her full power into the performance, enough to nearly wipe out the entire class. The other elder notices that things were actually becoming really dangerous. Even the prodigies are spitting liters of blood at this point. He shouts for her to stop, and she plays the last string, angry that she lost her composure for a 15-year-old brat who was considered the worst of everyone. And then, from a second to the other, the boy spits blood and agonizes. No one understands what is going on at the last moment. He falls to the floor, dropping a red C while thinking that Nano went too crazy with the internal damage. He vomits even more, and the red-haired elder gets a scare. If the boy dies, he will be the one to take responsibility. So he pushes the boy, telling him to get up, lifts him, asking himself how much energy he has. That's when he finds out that he has none. That boy was a lunatic. How he passed through this with just pure mental strength and sheer will. He tells some guys to take the boy to the infirmary, and the sound lady is confused. That boy hit his pain up to the last moment. She then asks the elder how much energy he really had, and the guy reveals that it's 0. He has none at all. She can't believe it. If that was the case, he would have fainted like every other kid. But the elder explains that he had some extremely serious injuries, and he just stayed standing on pure will. The guy thinks he wants a student like that, but he doesn't want to go against the 6 clans. While drunk homie here takes a gulp and says that things are finally getting fun. Red hair tells drunk homie to get lost, and their energy clashes, leaving every student on edge. Those were the left and right guardians of the projector know more about that kid. Chen Yo-wan, and who he is. What is this voice in his head? See, 1 week ago, beaten, bleeding, no strength left, Chor Young-wan is sprinting through a forest with a squad of assassins on his heels. They corner him, and they tell him the truth. It was never about talent or the academy. As long as he carries royal blood and a claim to the throne, they will never stop. The only way this ends is with him dead. He fights anyway. Baits them with a hidden second dagger, and takes one of them down and gets a sword run clean through his gut for it. Then they leave him to bleed out, slow. But out of nowhere a stranger appears, a teenager with modern clothes, his whole body crackling with lightning, and homeboy shreds the assassins like they're nothing. He says something about Chor being his predecessor, and before he vanishes, he jabs something into Chor's neck. A gift, he says. The latest model, a 7th-generation nano machine from something called the Isekai Company. Qian then wakes up in a bed and, strangely, his body's been purged, coughing up black sludge, every impurity forced out. And there's a voice talking to him from inside his own head. It's not a god. It's Nano. Around 482 million tiny machines living in his body, rebuilding him from the cells up, and it can't leave until he dies. Here's the part that matters. While the 6 clans spent a lifetime making sure this kid stayed weak, poisoning his mother years ago, forcing him to swear he'd never learn Nekkong, with his own half-brothers openly plotting to finish him at the academy, Nano is the perfect tool for revenge. Watch someone train, and Nano breaks down every movement, every muscle, then rewrites his body to match, gifting him 20 years of mastery in a single afternoon. That's exactly how he stole his guard's dagger art, just by watching from a window. Flip through a book once, and Nano scans every page, fixes the mistakes in it, and uploads the whole thing straight to his brain. Instant understanding. No studying. Get cut, get stabbed, and the wound seals itself shut right in front of his eyes. Nano can even reallocate his muscle fibers to increase strength. Literal tremble one on command. Bad part is, the only person our guy still has in this life is Guard Zhang. The man who actually raised him, cooked for him, was there when his father never was. Also the one who found him in the forest after Nano entered his body and brought him back home, and even brought a doctor to take a look at the boy. The same doctor who said something was wrong. This body of his was theoretically the perfect body for martial arts. Something had changed because he was the complete opposite of this. Right after surviving, our boy ate the last meal prepared by Guard Zhang, because it was time to get to the Demonic Academy test. Which brings us right back to the aftermath of the first test. The weakest son didn't just survive the sound. He outlasted every single prodigy in the room without a drop of knock-on, and caught the attention of the drunk homeboy, who is one of the strongest. Meanwhile, on the second floor of the infirmary, the academy doctor, Bach, is calmly reading when they bring in a patient, and he suddenly looks excited. He asks if it's really true. A patient on the very first day, just as he expected. This academy really is the best. One of them thinks that, just like Siobhan said, Bai Cake seems a little crazy when it comes to medical practice. He tells them not to just stand there and says to bring the boy in. When he sees Qian, he wonders how harsh the test must have been to leave him in that state. He even asks if the boy was stabbed in the stomach, but they say no, it's an internal injury. That shocks him even more. And the guard adds that he has no nagon, so the left guardian ordered them to be careful. Bach thinks that in 10 years of teaching, he has seen all kinds of cases, but never this much blood from an internal injury. The two guards say they've dropped the boy off and are leaving. Then one of them glances back at him and notices something odd. The other asks why he's stalling. They're busy. He says the boy somehow looks better than before and wonders if it's just his imagination. That makes the doctor step in to check him. The protagonist nearly wakes up, realizing he totally forgot he was in the infirmary and almost panicking. Even though the pain is still bad, he tells himself to endure it until the doctor is done. Bach checks his pulse and says it's clearly uneven, so the boy took serious damage. Still, even if he bit his tongue, that alone wouldn't explain this much blood. So he decides to start with acupuncture. Then, a small blast suddenly hits the room, and the doctor nearly jumps out of his skin when he sees it's the right guardian. Bayek asks why he's here. He calls him the coward who hides behind his mentor, then thinks to himself that this lunatic is still as arrogant as ever. Bayek asks what brought him here, since someone like a guardian shouldn't be injured. Shob picks up that he isn't welcome, and Bayek bluntly tells him to go rest somewhere else. Shob just thinks he'll never understand him. Then he looks at the protagonist again, calling him an interesting kid. The boy wonders why this guy came here at all. Did he figure out the internal injury was fake? Sob walks up to the bed, and the protagonist catches a strong smell of alcohol from him. Then Sub asks why he's pretending to sleep. When the boy still won't open his eyes, Sub uses Nigong to lift him upright without touching him. The doctor is shocked. Raising someone without a hand on them really shows he's a guardian. The protagonist realizes he was sat up by Nigong, but he still can't move well because his body hasn't recovered. Sub warns that if he keeps pretending, he'll smack him across the face. So the boy opens his eyes, knowing he's been caught. He asks how Sub knew. The crazy man bursts out laughing again, saying that only makes him more interesting. He asks how the boy can stay so calm in front of a guardian, and the protagonist already hates his personality. Siob explains that any skilled warrior can tell if someone's really asleep by the way they breathe, and the boy realizes Siob heard his breathing. Nanu points out that someone his age should breathe 12 to 20 times a minute, but he was breathing only around 8. The boy tells Nanu he really doesn't need that lecture right now. Siob says kids these days usually don't have this kind of nerve and praises his guts. The boy is confused, so Seob didn't come because he caught the act? Seob says most kids today are boring and always look for the easy way when things get hard, while the protagonist can only think that he didn't survive by willpower alone either. Still, Seob says he has a kind of will the others don't. White cuts in and says the boy is in bad shape and should be treated first, but the drunk guardian tells him to wait. An adult is talking. That makes the boy start coughing again, spitting up blood, and when Seob sees he really isn't doing well, he steps in and releases his nigong, forcing the boy back to sleep. Then he gets straight to the point. He wants to take him as his student. Neither of the other two can believe what they just heard, and Seob calmly takes another swig of liquor. The protagonist asks what he said, and Seob repeats that he wants him as his student. The boy asks if the right guardian knows who he is, and Seob says everyone does. Then the boy asks if the 6 clans won't hate him for this. Seob laughs and asks what exactly they could do to. Still, the protagonist wonders if this could be a trap. Meanwhile, the doctor realizes this is the 7th prince and says they expected some tricks this time, but making him lose this much blood is too far. The boy says he doesn't know what to say. It's sudden, and he already has teachers at the academy. Seob gets annoyed like the kid thinks he's begging for a student. Still, he can tell the boy has plenty of doubts, which makes sense after the life he's had. So, Seob says that's fine. If he's not convinced yet, he'll offer something he can't refuse. He tosses something to the boy. When the boy asks what it is, Seob says it's exactly what he needs to survive. After all, he ended up stuck in the infirmary on day 1. He asks if the boy isn't worried about falling behind. Passing the first test with sheer will is one thing, but no fool should think he can clear the second without Ni Gong. The protagonist starts to face that reality. Seob says anyone who wants to become a warrior has to stay ahead, then asks if he plans to lie in the infirmary for 2 weeks and start from behind. While he's stuck here, the others will definitely keep getting. The boy knows he's right, but he also needs to stay here a bit longer to avoid suspicion. Seeing his words are working, Seob asks if he knows why that red-haired idiot sent him here. The boy says it was because of the internal injury, and Seob agrees. Of course, an injured student gets sent to the infirmary. But then he asks if that isn't strange, since plenty of other kids were hurt too. So why weren't they sent here? Seob explains that most of them can handle injuries with meditation. A doctor or medicine would be faster, sure, but that's not the point. In simple terms, the others can heal themselves, so there's no reason to bring them in. The boy realizes that's why he's here alone. He can't heal himself. Seob thinks he's almost got him. Now he just needs the right final push. So he says someone who doesn't even know how to meditate to heal shouldn't recover from an internal wound this fast. Even with Seob pressing him, the protagonist knows it's possible because of Nano. Still, the rest of what Seob said is true. If he wants to move on, he needs to learn Ni Gong. Then he remembers something and asks Seob about the first floor of the library. Seob starts laughing again, saying Ruvi forgot to mention something important. The boy can't just go in and out whenever he wants. He only gets 1 visit after passing the test. That leaves the boy stunned. Seob asks if he really thought he could freely browse all those important books. The place is heavily guarded. The boy just stares at him. Seob adds that he can stay on the first floor for only 2 hours. The boy is disappointed there's a time limit too, but Seob says he can earn more time by advancing further. He also can't copy anything down. He has to memorize it all before leaving. Even 2 books is considered a lot to memorize, but the protagonist realizes this gives him a huge advantage. With Nano's scan ability, 2 hours could let him copy not 1 or 2 books, but hundreds. Seob says that for someone with no Nigong, 4 years in this brutal academy will really push him to the limit. The boy understands what he means. He's different from the others. Most of them were trained by their clans. While he has neither martial arts nor Nigong, if he wants to survive the threat the 6 clans, he needs to become someone's student. Then he looks at the paper by his head and asks if it's a Nigong breathing method. Sub says it is, and if the boy becomes his student, he'll teach him. The boy says he's still not sure he wants Sub as his master, but at least this means he finally has someone on his side, and maybe a chance to learn what the 6 clans kept from him. So the boy gets up, kneels before Sub, and says he accepts him as his mentor, asking to be accepted as his student. He thinks that a student should bow twice, but Sub pulls him back to his feet. He says the blood of Zion bows to no one but itself. Then Sobol tells him to rest for now, but before he returns, he wants him to memorize every Nigong breathing point and learn it well. After that, Sebel says he's leaving and tells the doctor to take good care of his student. The doctor asks if the boy is all right, and he says yes. His new master is just very impulsive. Buguk says that means Sebel must really like him, and congratulates the boy on becoming that drunkard's student. Beck adds that the injury will make things hard, and his pulse is still a mess. He says he'll go get some acupuncture tools, and tells the boy to wait. The protagonist thinks that with Naeno, the guardian, and all these new chances, he even thinks of his mother and guard Zhang. In a place full of enemies, he finally has people on his side. At the Demon Academy training field, everyone is practicing their Nigong. Meanwhile, the students from the stronger families stand aside watching, then approach the left guardian to report the results of the first test, including Cadet 7, who was taken to the infirmary. In total, 415 passed. Beck says about 200 fewer people passed than in the first test 10 years ago. The Elder's energy waves were too much. He knows the ones who failed would call it unfair, and they're already making a scene. Some of them protest, asking why they failed, foaming at the mouth in anger. A guard asks if they still don't get it. If they can't pass this, how do they expect to survive hard labor? One boy snaps back, asking how anyone could live like that. The guard sees he won't accept the result, so he orders them all thrown out of the academy. And just like that, the guards get rough and start tossing the boys back. Rogan says the guards are highly skilled, so the expelled kids can't win. Since they're this stubborn, they still won't learn from it. Myung says he'd think it was unfair too, and that the 7th cadet is why the first test got so hard. Then he adds that they lacked both luck and skill, and this was simply their fate. Rogan says many outstanding kids made it through, and Myung asks if he sees that too. Most of the injured ones are already meditating, and the candidates from the 6 clans and the 8 great clans passed with ease. They're clearly on another level. He says enduring the Elder's technique without getting hurt would take years of Naigong, which puts them far above the rest. He points to the Dark Clan's number 1, Chen, and the Sword Clan's number 5, Yu Chun. Those two didn't even move, and from the look of it, the real fight will be between the Dark Clan and the Sword Clan. Just as he expected, it should be interesting. Then he congratulates everyone for passing the first test. They'll receive a bronze coin, the Academy's lowest rank, and spend the next 4 years training as cadets. From now on, yes and no aren't allowed. The only proper reply is mato. Anything else means they want the order repeated. When he asks if they understand, everyone shouts mato together. Then he says they'll start sorting the groups. Meanwhile, the doctor says the boy's medicine is ready and begins the treatment. The boy speaks to the doctor, who introduces himself as Beck, and says, "Doctor alone isn't enough. He should use his full title." The boy asks Dr. Beck if his condition is really that bad, and Beck apologizes for saying this to an academy cadet, but says it'll take 11 to 15 days before he can join the tests. The boy is stunned. He wonders what to do, because once treatment starts, he can't just end it right away. Recovering too fast would look suspicious, but if he follows normal recovery, he'll fall behind. He still knows nothing about the first test after being sent here. Beck tells him not to be discouraged. With an ordinary doctor, he'd need months, but because he's Beck's patient, it'll be much faster. Even so, the boy hates losing that much training time.
Black tries to calm him down, saying he can help and will pretend not to notice he's learning from the Guardian. The boy thanks him and promises to repay him someday. Black says he's not expecting much either way. Then he starts the acupuncture. When he removes the blanket and clothes, he studies the boy's body and says that even without martial arts training, he's in better shape than expected. Since it's not from Negong, Black wonders if it came from Agong instead. He says the first needle goes in the center of the chest, but the moment he tries, Nanu detects possible harm from the metal needle and activates auto-defense. The boy quickly tells it to stop. He orders Nanu to stand down because the doctor is treating him and asks if it can't. The boy almost has a heart attack from the scare. Nanu explains that unless treatment is reported in advance, any bodily harm will be treated as an attack, so he tells it not to react without his permission from now on.
After that, the doctor continues the treatment, and the boy notices his stomach already hurts less. Nanu says it is recording the acupuncture data and explains the needle points below the chest, near the heart, and on the arm. 6 of them are meant to heal the stomach, though the boy says he could tell that without help. He looks at Beck, who tells him to take a nap while the treatment works, because the staring is making him self-conscious. The boy thinks he'd like to, but Nanu keeps explaining everything. Then he gets an idea and asks Nanu if using its healing along with this treatment would be faster, but if it works too fast, it'll look suspicious. So he asks whether it can heal him while making him still seem injured. Nanu says that after the treatment, self-healing can be used, and his pulse can be altered randomly to mimic a serious injury. He says he was only asking out of curiosity, but he's glad it's possible.
If he can fool them for 2 weeks, he can use that time to learn Negong from the Guardian. So he orders Nanu to heal him and trick Beck during future checkups, and Nanu starts self-healing at once. Meanwhile, the other cadets are terrified because half of them will be expelled, and none of the strongest fighters are in their group. They also suspect the 6 clans have an edge. Ming says this is the first and last test that needs teamwork. If they want to compete with each other, they can fail together. While he laughs, Rojin thinks he's way too good at crushing morale. He says that's all for today and orders them back to the dorms to rest. Starting tomorrow, the team in front of them will train them. That group doesn't look friendly at all. They seem dead inside, yet he says they'll teach tactics and techniques kindly. That kindness sounds like a joke after what they just did to the cadets, and the kids get even more scared. Soon after, everyone is dismissed. Then the instructor of Group 8, Yin Pyung, asks why Cadet 3 is still there. The boy says he has a question for him. The instructor reminds him that questions about training can't be answered, and the boy says he already knows that. So the instructor asks what he wants, and the boy says he already knows he'll be Group 8's leader. The instructor thinks that decision won't be announced until tomorrow, but, as usual, the 6 clans know the rules early. The boy points out that Cadet 7 was assigned to their group but is still in the infirmary, so the instructor asks what he's getting at. The boy says that with 1 member missing, he doesn't want the group left in the dark. When pressed, he explains that since Cadet 7 missed the ceremony, he won't know anything, so someone should tell him what was said. The instructor is slightly surprised. Meanwhile, the boy is really thinking that bastard ended up in his group and he plans to finish him off in the infirmary. But the instructor completely misreads it and praises the idea, saying the boy clearly understands the basics. He says he'll accept the suggestion as Group 8's instructor and personally deliver the information to him. The boy quickly says that's not necessary. He can go himself. The instructor reminds him that the building is off limits to cadets except in special cases, saying it while staring straight at the prince. The boy realizes he won't be getting in and wonders why everything is going wrong. He may be a Spring Clan candidate, but his little title means nothing here. Left with no choice, he asks the instructor to do it as a favor, and the instructor tells him to head back to the dorm. But he calls the instructor back once more, and the man asks if there's anything else. The boy asks if he can at least be told when Cadet 7 will join them. The instructor says that's fine, but since it's late, he'll tell him tomorrow. At that point, the boy thinks he'll just have to wait until Cadet 7 returns to the dorm. Then he'll make him suffer so badly, he'll wish he had died that day. Later, the doctor tells the instructor the boy will need 14 days. The damage was that severe, so he needs at least 2 weeks of rest. The instructor says that much downtime will make it hard for him to keep up, and asks if there's any way to speed his recovery. Bayek says if the boy had Nigong, maybe something could be done. But Cadet 7 has none. In his condition, the only option is to wait. The instructor remembers the second test is in 3 weeks. He can't believe the boy will lose 2 of those weeks, and he doesn't want his whole group eliminated because of one person. So he asks if he can speak with the boy. There's a lot they need to discuss. Boyk says the boy seems asleep and asks if he should wake him, but the instructor declines and says he'll come back tomorrow. Then he leaves.
Boyk keeps watching the boy, thinking that barely passing the first test may have been the end of his luck. But the boy keeps sleeping peacefully. In the middle of the night, a few people approach the place where the boy is staying, and one of them kicks the window. It turns out to be Sho, saying his mentor has arrived. The boy is shocked. That feeling fades fast because Sho reeks of alcohol. Sho asks if he's not even going to greet him, so the boy quickly says hello, and Sho says good. Then he asks if the homework is done. The boy looks confused and asks if he means the Negong breathing method. Sho says yes, that was supposed to be memorized before he came back. The boy thinks about how he got to the infirmary yesterday and starts feeling like Sho is pretty impatient. Still, he's glad Nani treated him and says he followed the order. Sho is surprised he actually did it while injured, since he only said it to mess with him. Even so, he keeps acting tough and says the boy only did what he should have, so the boy thanks him for the praise. Then he asks if his teacher came a little too early, and Siobhan asks why. Was he tired? The boy says that's not it, so Siobhan tells him good. Now he'll explain why this matters. He can only teach him for 2 weeks. He can visit while the boy is in the infirmary, but once he leaves, Siobhan won't be able to contact him anymore. The boy admits he didn't think that far ahead, and Siobhan says, of course not. He got hospitalized the moment he arrived. Siobhan adds that he has to work with his teacher during the day, so this is the only time he can come without raising suspicion. The Protor realizes outside training is banned in the academy, so if they get caught, it'll be a huge problem. He expected Siobhan to be stubborn, but he's actually being thoughtful, so he thanks him. Siobhan says they don't have much time, so they're starting now, and the boy is shocked it's happening right away. Siobhan asks if he didn't hear him. There's no time to waste. He orders the boy to turn around and sit on the floor, but the kid just freezes. So Siobhan snaps at him to start reading already, and the boy sits down at once. The Protor says he wants an explanation first. Siobhan shuts that down fast. Stop talking and listen. Then he says it's good the boy memorized the breathing method. He places a hand on the boy's back, and when the boy asks what he's doing, Siobhan says he's short on time, so he'll force the flow into him. That wording scares the protoy a little, but Shiva says this is actually a refined method his great-grandfather created. The boy doesn't need to do anything. Shiva will handle it. He only tells him to clench his jaw, because if he screams, the guards will come, and they'll both be in serious trouble. Then Shiva pours energy into him, making the boy's eyes go wide. Shiva immediately tells the protoy A to stay quiet.
At the same time, Nani reports that an intangible energy has entered the user's blood and begins analyzing it from the gathered data. The energy is identified as ki, or chakra, and Nani starts checking its effects on the body. The Protor realizes his Nai Gong is forcing his veins open, and it's way more intense than he expected. Siobhan is stunned by him because he clearly hasn't learned anything, yet his circulation has no blockages at all. His muscles also make it look like he's trained before, even though Siobhan is sure he never learned martial arts. So Siobhan wonders if this came from the Lord, and remembers the Lord spending time with the boy's mother. She was smiling the whole time, and Siobhan thinks that out of 7 wives, the only one the Lord may have truly cared about was Lai Hua. So maybe he secretly took care of her son too. Still, whether that's true or not, Siobhan gets excited because the result worked either way.
With a body like this, it should only take about a week to build up a solid amount of Nai Gong, and he keeps pouring energy into the boy. Meanwhile, back at the dorms, someone is beating down one of the princes and sends him flying. The others rush after the attacker, while the prince is left on the ground, nearly unconscious. They demand to know who that guy thinks he is. Does he really think he'll be safe after attacking Jian, John's son of the Poison Clan? The boy says it doesn't matter who they are. This academy runs on strength. He won, so they should carry their weight from Group 12. And that fighter is Cadet Leader 18, Bak Gi. They came in swinging from the start, launching a prince across the room. Now I want to see the pro to do that. After forcing his Nai Gong into the boy, Scalb looks exhausted and asks if he memorized the flow. The pro says he remembers it clearly. Scalb laughs and says the first time must have hurt a lot, but this is the best way to teach someone like him who has no Nai Gong. Then he says the goal is 7 days. The boy has to build enough Nai Gong by then. He asks if he understands. Seeing how drained Saber is, the pro realizes he must have used a huge amount of Nai Gong too, so the least he can do is endure as much as possible. He says he'll succeed as long as Saber keeps helping him. Saber says that was well said. Then he declares the training for that day is over. He warns him not to forget the breathing or the flow. He has to know both for sure. Serab says he's leaving now and tells the boy to take care, so the pro just simply thanks his mentor. He promises he'll definitely manage it in 1 week. Then, at the Demonic Academy's Nai Gong Training Center, the children chosen as group leaders gather there. A lot of students are bruised from last night too, and the princess clearly wasn't joking. Most of her team is wrecked. He explains the instructors stayed out of the dorms on purpose so the students could fight each other and settle the rankings themselves. Then he looks at Group 12 and notices the Poison Clan boy should have become leader, but instead Cadet 18 took that spot. From the way they look, Nai Gong can tell the fight was brutal. Anyone bold enough to attack a prince isn't just skilled. He's got guts, too. Then Han Jin shows up and says training is about to begin. The other instructor agrees, grabbing everyone's attention. For the next week, every morning, starting today, they'll learn basic battle tactics in the auditorium to the right. After lunch, they'll train here. He asks if they understand. Everyone answers yes. Then they're told to head to the auditorium, with Group 1 moving first. Everyone leaves, while the prince who lost is completely miserable. His brother starts mocking him, asking if he really fell that far in rank. That instantly sets him off.
The brother says it figures below even the smaller clans, and he laughs at him, making him even angrier. Then the prince looks at the boy who beat him and smirked, remembering his name, Bake Guy, from a high clan. He can't believe the boy dared to humiliate him, so he tells him to enjoy his little leader game while he can, because he'll make him regret being in his group. That night, in the academy dorms, Cadet 3, the big musclehead, is called over. The instructor says his performance in the test was very good, and he thanks him. Then the instructor brings up Cadet 7, saying he'll be stuck in the infirmary for 2 weeks. The boy is shocked, but the instructor says that's the doctor's judgment. Even if he memorizes the theory, missing practice will be a problem. The instructor doubts someone without Naigong can recover well, but says he'll go check again tomorrow anyway. Since Cadet 3 is off for now, he should use the time well, either training or reviewing. That makes the musclehead furious that the boy is still far away, and when he gets back to the dorm, he starts smashing things. Everyone notices he's losing it, but one of them tells the others to stay quiet because provoking this guy will only make things worse. Then he starts roaring that the boy will stay there for 2 whole weeks. But Jerian says if the doctor said that, it's probably true. The musclehead snaps back that it's obvious the boy is faking. Just thinking about that dirty blood bastard lying around comfortably makes him grind his teeth. Jerian tells the prince to calm down and asks why. Instead of raging, he doesn't handle it another way. Then he whispers something in the prince's ear that cheers him up a bit. 4 days later, Baek-yo is actually feeling down. It's been 5 days with no patients, and he says he's dying of boredom. He thinks Chan-yo definitely won't be his last patient. Then someone starts pounding on the door again like crazy. He asks what happened and sees the instructor with Im Pyung. The instructor says his cadet got hurt during sword training. They left the sword in so the wound wouldn't get worse and brought him straight here. Baek-yo lights up and tells him to put the boy on the bed. Finally, a patient. Baek-yo finishes the treatment quickly and says that's because they didn't pull the sword out. Im Pyung asks about the boy's condition, and Baek-yo says none of his vital points were hit. That makes the instructor relax. Big Guy even jokes that he worried for nothing, but he knows the instructor cares about his students. Until the end of the second test, there is responsibility, and now 2 of them are in the infirmary. Big Guy says the wound went deep even if it missed the critical spots, so the boy will need to stay there. Not as long as Cadet 7, though. 3 days will be enough. The instructor says he's heading back to training for now and asks him to take care of Cadet 23.
Im Pyung storms out, furious. Real sword training just started, and now he already has another injury to explain? That night, Cadet 23 gets up. Kim Yun is still asleep. His eyes land on the scalpels beside the bed. He grabs one and decides to start by making sure the protagonist won't be able to walk. Then he slips into MC's room. He tells himself he's only doing this to stay alive. With that, he cuts Kim Yun's tendon and says not to blame him. But when he moves in to hurt him again, Nano's auto-defense kicks in and shocks him hard. The boy blacks out and drops to the floor. Chen gets up and says it happened exactly like he expected. A little later, the kid who got dropped cold starts waking up and wonders what. Then he sees he's tied up in bed and his head has been shaved. Shocked, he asks who did this. Chen steps up beside him and says he did, calling him Baldy. The boy stares and asks how the protagonist is standing and how he pulled this off. MC plays dumb, saying all he did was tie him up and put him on the bed while he was out, then calls him Baldy again. The boy asks how he even passed out, but before that, shouldn't he be hurt? He looks totally fine. He also can't understand why Keith's calling him Baldy. Then he looks in the mirror and realizes it's true. He's bald. He starts crying, freaking out over his missing hair. The protagonist punches him and tells him to shut up, only to realize he knocked him out again. When Baldy wakes up one more time, Chen asks if he's calm now. The boy glares at him with pure hate, but he can only mumble through the cloth in his mouth. Now he sees MC isn't the clueless kid from the ceremony. He's far scarier, and the boy starts wondering who Chen really is. He asks how he thinks he managed to stay alive this long. Picking up a knife, he says people have tried to kill him before. Some even used poison. So how many times does he think that happened? Then he presses the blade to Baldy's neck. The protagonist says attacking him was stupid and asks if he knows how much getting stabbed hurts because it can kill you. He tells the boy to talk, but the kid still resists. So Qian pulls the gag from his mouth and orders him to speak. The boy asks what MC is even talking about. He claims he knows nothing, and if he stabs him, everyone will blame him instead. He even brings up the academy rules. Students can't hurt each other outside training or duels. Qian figures, as expected, he won't talk easily. The boy insists that even torture won't make him confess. Inside, he feels confident. He thinks the protagonist can't do anything and starts acting tough. MC says, fine. Then they'll just find out if he really can keep his mouth shut. He stuffs the gag back in to silence him again, then tells him to wait there. Qian says he grew up with very little, but this place has plenty to work with.
He picks up some needles, and the boy panics, wondering what they're for. He lets out a dark laugh, and the kid grabs his arm and twists it back, asking if he's scared. The boy had already started clenching his fist, and now he realizes the protagonist is absurdly strong, even without proper training. He asks why MC is trying to open his hand, wondering what he's about to do. He says it'll hurt a little, then drives a needle under his fingernail. The pain is so bad, the boy breaks down crying on the spot. Qian tells him not to be dramatic and grabs another needle. The boy begs him to stop. The protagonist reminds him he said torture wouldn't work, so now he says this is payback. Then he pushes needles under the rest of the boy's nails. After all his fingers are wrecked, the kid collapses, his eyes nearly empty. Chidon asks if it hurt that much. After all, he already passed out twice. Then he asks if they should do the other hand too. That finally makes Baldy panic and cry out no. MC asks if he's ready to talk now, saying he should have done that from the start. The boy realizes Chidon is insane. A little more of that and he might have died or lost his mind. So he decides to confess. He gets straight to it and asks if it was go. The boy blurts out, asking how the protagonist knew. MC asks if he's curious, and the answer is yes. He says that, thanks to his injury, the instructor comes by every day to teach him, so he knows exactly which group this boy is in and who's with him. He had already guessed, but wanted to hear it directly. Then he calls him out by name. Cadet 23, Hu Bang. Hu Bang starts wondering who called Chidon useless because this kid is a monster. He's hiding his strength and pretending to be weak, and Hu Bang can't imagine how dangerous he'll be when he gets stronger. The protagonist says he got what he needed, but now he wants some sleep, so they're done for tonight. Hu Bang feels relieved, but MC adds one more thing.
What he heard here stays here.
Hu Bang quickly says he won't tell anyone. Then he notices something strange. Chidon is holding up one finger. He jabs that finger into the side of Hu Bang's head. Only then does Hu Bang realize it's the protagonist using a blood point strike. He had thought MC didn't have Negong. That belief is gone now, and Hu Bang drops again, stunned that Chidon fooled everyone. Funny enough, he never told anyone anything. They just assumed he had no Negong. By the end of the night, Chidon heads toward the infirmary and says he didn't expect the protagonist to learn this fast. The day before, he had given MC a bit more Negong, and even he couldn't believe what he saw. Chidon learned Negong in just 5 days, when it usually takes at least 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even a month. He completely beat Sigob's expectations. The kid is seriously talented. Sigob had planned to help him gain Negong over 2 weeks, then teach him basic techniques and breathing methods.
But now that plan has changed. When he arrives, he greets his teacher and Sigob the greeting. Then Sigob asks where he put it. Chidon says it's under the bed, and Som tells him to bring it out. It's the Dragon Sphere, a medicine ball made by the Academy. Students who pass the first test usually receive one, and if it's absorbed right, it can give the user power equal to 20 years of Negong. After that, later doses work less and less. Som thinks it still smells awful, but if the protagonist uses it well, he could gain those 20 years of Negong. Then he should be able to protect himself. But suddenly, Som senses something is off. He asks if someone is here and wants to know who that is. Looking over, he spots a boy in terrible shape. He realizes Chidon used a blood point strike to knock him out. MC explains that the boy came after him when Dr. Bakai left. Siob is shocked to hear he attacked MC, and MC adds that this started yesterday, the 5th day since they entered the academy, when real sword training began. He thinks Hubong stabbed himself on purpose just to get into the infirmary. Siob asks how he dared do something like this in the academy infirmary, warning that he'd be expelled if discovered. It took nerve, or someone sent him. Chidon's face darkens right away. Siob notices that reaction and says he must know who's behind it, then asks who gave the order. The protagonist says it was that bastard from the royal clan in his group. Siob is surprised. He says he's never seen anyone truly decent come from that clan. It's a troubled family full of troublemakers, though he knows better than to say too much about them. MC says it's fine. He's used to a hard life. The way he says it hits Siob a little. Then he smacks the sleeping Hubong awake. He explains that Chidon struck his blood point with less than a year of Nagan, so Hubong will recover in a few hours. Doing that properly usually takes at least 10 years. Siob asks if he understands, and he says he'll remember it. At last, the protagonist takes the foul-smelling pill. Siob tells him he can use it now, and MC asks if he should just swallow it. Siob says no, he needs to chew it first, then swallow, because that helps absorption. Siob catches the horrible smell and already knows this will be rough. Still, he bites into it and nearly breaks. It smells awful, tastes even worse, and the bitter flavor makes him feel like he's going to throw up. Siob tells him to start the breathing technique now that he swallowed it, and he obeys. He sits down, and Siob says he'll teach him how to absorb it properly. Then, Siob starts pressing both hands on him and pouring in a little more Nagan. Nano suddenly reports that a substance is changing into energy inside his body, multiplying and reacting with the flow already in him. She asks if he will allow that absorption to speed up the cycle. He has no idea what she means, but if it helps, he agrees. So Nano begins boosting his body's metabolism. Seeing this, Siob is stunned and wonders if the kid was born with the body of a war god. It's like he isn't just absorbing the medicine, he's making it stronger. He should only take in about 80% at most, and Siob realizes he was worried for nothing. By sunrise, the boy has absorbed all of it. He's amazed by the result, and Siob asks how the Nagon feels. He says the kid did well. This time he's drenched in sweat. He managed to gain another 1.5 years of Nagon, and the boy is shocked. That makes 30 years total. Siob says that's only a rough estimate. The other students have to absorb theirs alone, so they probably won't even get half that much. The boy gets even more excited. He says it's all thanks to his teacher. Without Sob, he couldn't have done it. Sob tells him he really is lucky. He also says his luck comes from her, and Nano answers that she was made to help him. Then he notices it's getting late, and he needs to head back, so the boy calls out to his teacher and asks if, starting tomorrow, Sob can teach him how to form sword skills. Sob says of course he can, but there won't be much time, so the boy better be ready. Meanwhile, back with the students, that jerk prince laughs and says it's a beautiful morning. His number one lackey notices he's in a great mood. The prince says it's all thanks to Jurian, then praises him. By now, that bastard should be in serious trouble. His legs ought to be broken. He laughs, saying he wanted to see him crawling on the ground like a bug. Just thinking about it gets him excited. Too bad for him, the protagonist is perfectly fine, and those broken legs won't be his. At the clinic, Bach bursts out laughing.
He asks how the kid lost all his hair overnight, and the boy gets mad because he can't even yell back with someone else nearby. The doctor apologizes for laughing so much and says he tried to hold it in, but the boy says it's too late. Then, Bub goes over to the protagonist and notices he looks strangely relaxed. The doctor can tell something happened during the night, but decides not to dig into it. He was told to focus on treatment, not questions. 2 days later, at the clan dorm, the prince says, "This is interesting. Shouldn't that boy have been kicked out of the group by now?" The bald kid says he was going to his tendons, but maybe the injuries were too serious. The doctor stayed with him all night and never left. The prince asks if the doctor really didn't sleep, like he thinks the kid is making excuses. Then the boy explains that he did attack at night, just like he was told, but the doctor woke up too. That makes the prince furious. He hits the kid and mocks him, asking how good a doctor's hearing could possibly be. The boy goes flying, badly hurt, and the prince stomps on him, calling him trash and asking how he could fail something so simple. Then, lackey number 1 tells him to wait, and the prince asks why. The lackey says they should at least learn the clinic doctor's name. The answer is Baek Jong-myung. That's the name the boy heard, and the lackey seems to recognize it. The prince asks if it means something. He says the doctor is probably a disciple of Baek Jong-woo, which shocks him. That man is from the Poison Clan, but he studies medicine that counters poison and became the Lord's personal doctor. He's also said to rank around 30th in the academy, despite being a physician. So if this doctor really is his disciple, his martial arts might be exceptional. Even so, the prince keeps beating the kid, saying sending him was a total waste of time. He keeps hitting him anyway, and warns him not to dream of getting help for his clan. The boy asks what he just said, remembering when the prince came to recruit him for this job. Back then, the prince told him not to worry about failing after all. He was from the Spring Clan, and if he got expelled, the prince would surely help his clan. Now the boy realizes that was all a lie, so he tells the prince to keep hitting him. He wants to see if he acts this brave when that boy shows up. That makes the prince uneasy, and he asks why the kid is wearing a bandana, then rips it off. The boy is completely bald, so shiny the prince can see his own reflection in it. He starts asking if the kid really thought shaving his head would earn forgiveness. Everyone realizes the dorm, quiet for a while, is noisy again. The prince says he feels sick and tells Jerion to leave. Jerion follows right behind him like a loyal dog, and the beaten boy is left there, near tears, cursing them all and wishing they'd die. Meanwhile, the protagonist casually asks the doctor if he knows, but Baek says not at all. He only studied medicine. 7 days later, at the clinic at 7 a.m., the protagonist is already doing a much more advanced training session in front of Saeed, who starts thinking to himself that this kid is definitely a genius. He only demonstrated the butterfly technique a few times and fixed his posture over the last few days, yet now every move looks steady and natural. If he keeps training seriously, he won't have trouble using the technique, so Saeed tells him to move on to the next part. The protagonist thinks that thanks to Nano's analysis of his teacher, he can copy it perfectly, but that would look suspicious, so he holds back a little. Even so, he repeats every step.
Cedric explains that the graffiti martial art has 24 opening moves, every 3 combined into one form, making 8 forms total. He says teaching the basics already took time, so he couldn't teach the links between them. If he had 1 or 2 more months, he could teach him everything. 1 week is far too short. Still, he says the boy memorized it very well, and he hands him a paper too. It contains the opening part of the butterfly technique and Kunigang operating methods. He wanted to teach more, since this is the last day, but because it's him, he knows the boy will pick up the basics quickly. Next time they meet, he'll check everything, so he tells him not to be lazy and to study hard. The boy thanks him and promises he won't let Saeed down. Cedric says he better not. Then he draws his sword and tells the boy that this is his martial sword. He tells him to try holding it. When the boy picks it up, Cedric asks if it feels light, and he says it's not as heavy as he expected. Cedric explains that normal swords weigh 2 or 3 gaijins, but the light sword of his clan weighs only 1.5. The boy guesses that's because of the butterfly technique, and Cedric says he's sharp. Then Cedric swings the sword and slices part of the boy's bed. The boy realizes just how sharp it is, though he also thinks the doctor will be upset if he sees that. Cedric explains that even without flashy range or light, it's forged from refined metal, and its sharpness and durability are what gave the sword that name. He tells the boy to step back because now he'll show him what he's been wanting to see: the butterfly technique of his mentor. Pay close attention. The boy immediately tells Nano to get ready to analyze it, and she starts at once. As Cedric leaves, 2 other guards watch him from a rooftop. Mayung says that Ratguard is finally gone, and Meraki Ai says he did well pretending not to know. He asks how he could go against orders, but admits he's glad he won't have to see him around anymore. Then he says they should send guards to the 2nd floor since there are so many people there. Meraki Fur just says he's going, and Mayung takes the chance to ask why he cares so much about the 7th prince. Meraki Fur says it's because it's only fair. Mayung says that's a pretty interesting way to think, but Meraki Fur tells him not to question him any further and leaves at once. Mayung says that's exactly what you'd expect from the Wind King. You never know when he'll disappear, and if he chooses to leave, nobody could stop him. Still, he wonders if 10 days really make things fair. Then Big Guy heads to the clinic and finds it strange that the boy is still asleep. He's usually awake by then, so he asks what's going on. He says this is the last time he'll get to rest like this. Once he leaves, he'll go through a lot, so he tells him to sleep a little more. But in truth, the boy's muscles are changing. His body is adapting to the butterfly technique. Muscle changes are 80% complete. Vein change is 75, with 1 hour left until everything reaches 100. An hour later, after the hack is installed, Big Guy jolts awake when he hears the boy vomiting. He rushes over and asks what happened. The protagonist is throwing up hard over the side of the bed, so Big Guy asks why he's suddenly vomiting and sweating like this. After that, he lays the boy back down when he seems a little better, then checks his pulse and asks what's going on. Big Guy wonders what's going on. After lying in bed that long, John shouldn't have a pulse this fast. It feels like his whole body is still working non-stop. Nano tells the protagonist his body has finished adjusting to the evolution. He starts to calm down. Bake is stunned. 1 second, MC was in bad shape, and the next he's stable. He's never heard of anything like this. In the end, Bake gives up trying to figure it out. Since lunch is close,
He decides to let Chan sleep and goes to eat. When he wakes up, he realizes his body has changed again. He feels tougher than before. The strength in his hands is completely different from 6 hours ago. He thinks about all the masters it would normally take to build a body like this. If they knew he got it in just 6 hours, they'd probably be scared. Then he remembers Shob's demonstration right in front of him, and it still leaves him shaken. To create that kind of pressure with a technique in the first stage was unbelievable. So he asks Nano if she analyzed it, and she says yes, completely. He asks if she captured every move, and she confirms it. Seed says it's a shame he can't teach him properly since this is the last day. Still, knowing Chan, he believes the boy can master it just by watching. The protagonist thanks his teacher for the lesson, and Seeds tells him to keep training. Once he returns to the academy, things will get rough. He warns him not to lose. Chan realizes there is at least one person who truly cares about him. That means he has to live up to those hopes. He asks Nano if the analysis is done, and she says yes. To copy the technique, his muscles and veins need major changes, and it will take about 6 hours. After MC's body reaches the right condition, he manages to copy the technique perfectly. He's shocked that just one move looks exactly like Sob's. He thinks about trying the second one, but then he senses someone nearby. There's movement in the hallway. That's when he notices something strange. His senses are much sharper now, just like the rest of his body. To him, that just proves the modifications were done perfectly. Beck walks in and sees Chi in a wake. He asks when he got up and what he means by complete. He says he's ready to be discharged and realizes the presence he sensed was Dr. Beck. Beck gives him back all his clothes and his pendant, too. Then the doctor gets a little sad. He barely has any other patients, so he wonders what he'll even do after the protagonist leaves. Chi-in gives him a sly smile and says he'll probably have more patients soon. Beck asks if he really thinks so, then admits it'd be better if no one needed treatment at all. MC remembers to thank him for taking care of him all this time. Beck brushes it off, saying MC is about to go through a lot, and he'll pray for him. After he leaves, Beck thinks there's nothing left to do now. He wonders if maybe he should just go to sleep. Meanwhile, the protagonist thinks that if Beck noticed Siob was secretly teaching him and stayed quiet, then the doctor must have been put in a tough spot during his stay. MC decides he'll never forget that kindness, and as for the patient's bike wants so badly, she figures he can definitely send some his way. Maybe that's not what most doctors want to hear, but at least he means well. Meanwhile, the two idiots from his group suddenly get chills for no reason. Back at the demonic academy during afternoon training, everyone notices the other demonic heir has returned, and that 2 weeks have already passed. Mujung is thrilled. The commoner blood is back. Chang goes straight to the leader to report in, and the leader asks if he's recovered. The protagonist says he's fully healed. The leader says he already explained the theory, but asks if MC still remembers his place. He says yes, so the leader orders him to grab a sword and shield and take his position. As Chung heads to his spot, Mugyung starts yapping beside him. The protagonist completely ignores him, and that fills the brat with rage. MC thinks Mugyung shouldn't get excited yet.
Soon he'll be reminded where he stands. The instructor announces they'll begin training with real swords, warning everyone to stay focused and keep a safe distance. If another accident happens, he'll have them expelled with the leader's approval. He asks if they understand, and they all answer yes. Then, training begins. The instructor admits Mugyung may be arrogant, but he leads his team well. The real issue is the bastard Chang. He was placed in the safest position on purpose, with one simple order: don't mess up. Then the instructor notices him standing there, doing better than expected. He wonders if the protagonist is studying everyone else's movements, and realizes the boy is pretty sharp. He orders them to raise their shields properly and hold their stance. After that, he says they did well and tells them to wait for his command. 15 minutes later, he snaps. He never told anyone to move, so who made that noise?
If they can't even do this right, how are they supposed to beat enemies? He tells them to pay attention. The instructor thinks it's strange. Even the students who've trained before are struggling. So how is Chang, who just got back from the infirmary, doing this without even shaking? He decides MC needs a different spot and orders a formation change. Now they have to surround the enemy in a semicircle. 1 short step forward, then 2 big steps. Again, they're told they did well. Chang stays relaxed while everyone else is dying just to keep up. Mugyong is stunned, wondering if this kid never makes mistakes. To him, he is still just some worthless commoner, and he refuses to sit there and watch. So he speaks to Jerian through telepathy, telling him to give a sign if he hears him, and to do exactly what he says during the next formation change. The two start plotting together, and the formation shifts again. This time, they're ordered into 3 shield layers, and Chang thinks it's easy. He even credits Nano's analysis for being so useful. Once the shields are locked, they're told to slide their swords through the gaps. They're also told to stay careful without losing speed. From behind the protagonist, Jerian says he has a perfect opening. He sneers that commoners should kneel, then tries to strike Chang. But MC turns and looks him straight in the eye. Jerian freezes. He noticed Jerian had planned to use just a little Nagaong, since the protagonist supposedly knew no martial arts. But now he decides to go all out with a kick. Before he can even touch MC, Nano's automatic defense activates. The shock blasts him back hard. Mugyong can't believe Chang blocked it, and the bald idiot can't believe he got thrown away when his Nagaong should be stronger. The leader storms over, furious that he's causing trouble again. Jerian panics and tries to stand, but his ankle starts hurting. He looks toward Chang, and he looks right back with a very satisfied smile. Another fool tried messing with him and paid for it. Jerian burns with anger that a commoner dared laugh at him. But then the leader cuts in, asking why he's still running his mouth. He says Jerian must be an idiot with no sense at all. Jerian tries to explain, but the leader isn't hearing it. He calls him crazy and drives a punch straight into the kid's chest. Then he says Jerian stabbed number 23 in the back. As punishment, he'll get no rest for the next 4 days and will train with the leader until bedtime. Jerian realizes things just got much worse. The leader asks if he still has more nonsense to say, and Jerian finds out that he's not going to be able to do that. The leader finally shuts up. Everyone can tell he had it coming, especially after acting so tough with Mugyong backing him up. Mugyong is furious too, since all his plans are falling apart, and his hatred for Chang keeps growing. Watching from afar, Meng thinks the protagonist Nagaong is stronger than expected. Even if the right guardian taught him, something still feels off. That bald fool should have had the power of 30 years of training after getting the medicine orb. So how did MC beat him so easily? There's no way that drunk really trained him that well. Meng starts to wonder if Chang has some talent for fully absorbing the orb's power. That's the only explanation he can think of. With 2 heirs in the same group, he decides things are about to get interesting. Later, in the armory hall, the leader tells them they can eat. Everyone rushes in. Chang is thrilled. It's chicken. Nothing fancy, but to him, it tastes amazing. After 2 weeks of eating only porridge, this feels like torture finally ending. Still, he wonders if that idiot plans to stare at him the whole time. For now, he decides to just enjoy the meal, even if he still doesn't fully know why that guy hates him so much. But he can't forget what they did. They have no idea what it's like to watch your mother die and be unable to do anything. He can't wait to return the favor. He plans to destroy every one of them. When lunch ends, the leader dismisses everyone except number 80. That leaves Jerian behind, and he gets some extra training with the leader. Chang gives a dark little smile as he heads back to his room. He notices his dorm is on the 8th floor and thinks it's easy to remember since it matches his group number. Then Mu-kyung calls out, asking if he really planned to leave without permission. Chang starts thinking this guy really does live up to his expectations. People whisper that he always acts like some big master and that he's the heir of the Spring Clan. Someone asks who that is, and they hear it's the rumored 7th heir. The princess watches from a distance. Mu-kyung looks around at the crowd and wonders if he should start now. Then he walks over to the protagonist and calls him Dirty Blood. He mocks him, asking if resting in the infirmary was nice. When the protagonist asks what's wrong, Mugwan snaps back, asking if he's mad and calling him a worthless commoner. Then the protagonist asks if he's insulting the Lord, which leaves him confused. The protagonist says that calling him Dirty Blood is also an insult to the Lord. Mugwan asks what he means. Then the protagonist asks if his staff status is really so high that he can insult someone they treat like a god. Mugwan starts to shrink back as everyone begins whispering. He wanted to embarrass the protagonist in front of everyone, but now he's the one getting humiliated. Watching it all, the princess says the Spring Clan is as dumb as ever. Then the prince of the Sword Clan asks why he's making such a stupid scene and calls him a bastard. Furious, Mugwan decides to use force. He grabs the boy by the neck, curses at him, and says he'll shut that arrogant mouth. But the protagonist answers with a punch straight to his face.
That drops him to his knees. The protagonist asks what exactly he was going to break. The boy starts coughing up blood and demands to know how a commoner dared to do that. Then he rushes in. He comes at the boy with the horse technique, but the protagonist vanishes from in front of him. Jumping back, Mugwan is stunned by that move. Then the protagonist starts running, but the Sword Clan boy asks how he can use a skill like that. Mugwan yells, asking what they're all doing, and orders them to catch him. He stays behind in disbelief that the boy dared to hit him first and run. To him, that makes the kid less than human. Meanwhile, the protagonist runs into the forest. The others wonder why he is so fast. Then they realize something is off. He's only staying just far enough ahead to keep them chasing. They're being lured. But then the prince shows up, calls them slow, and says he'll finish this himself. Thinking of Cheon, he swears he'll kill him and break every bone in his body. He keeps chasing until the protagonist finally stops. Right away, he starts cursing, asking if the boy got tired of running. But the protagonist throws that back at him, like the whole thing is a joke. He says there's no reason to show off. Then he raises his hand and brings it down on Mugwan. Mugwan tries to block, but barely manages it. He's still thrown back, and he's shocked. He defended with no guan, yet still got pushed away. That means the protagonist's inner energy is strong. So he asks how the boy even knows martial arts. His attacks are fast, and in the first test he had no nigong at all. What changed? The protagonist thinks this is perfect. He's as frustrated as planned. Then Mugwan says he'll keep going and charges again. He uses the second subform, Frontier of the Night, but still can't hit Mugwan. The attack misses by a hair. Mugwan dodges and counters at the boy's stomach. The protagonist recognizes the move, so he uses the Spring Clan's second form too. Continuous attack, but the protagonist still dodges. Then, when he comes in again, the protagonist stops him with both hands and sends him flying back. Mugwan thinks this still shouldn't be stronger than a teacher's nigong. Even before joining, the boy should have been above the other students, and after taking the pill, even more so. That makes him more careful, but he still thinks he can handle it.
He decides to keep attacking without giving the protagonist any chance to counter. Then the boy disappears from his sight. He starts circling at high speed, and Mugwan is shocked. The others realize it's an illusion and wonder how the protagonist can use something like that. Using a blind spot, he attacks Mugwan, but the boy ducks and avoids it. Then he kicks toward the protagonist's face, sending him flying back. Mugwan thinks the boy is good with subforms, but still doesn't know how to answer properly in a real fight. The protagonist realizes he got too focused on the techniques and never saw that kick coming. Mugwan says he's impressed the boy used skills outside his specialty, but he can tell it's all just improvised. Just like he thought, the protagonist is copying others without knowing his own limits. The protagonist sees he's been figured out. He only learned 2 subform techniques and has no real combat experience, so he admits he underestimated him. Who knew experience made this much difference? Mugwan says he doesn't know how the boy learned martial arts, but then activates the Spring Clan's 5th subform, double submission, and says questions can wait. The protagonist wonders what it does and which subform he should use. Nano warns him about an outside threat and boosts his vision and response. She says she'll switch to defense mode through the battle tutorial. Then she suddenly pulls out good old boxing. He slips to the side and lands a hook on Mugwan.
Even the protagonist barely understands what's happening. The boy jumps back with blood on his face. He puts blood on his mouth and realizes that wasn't a martial arts technique. The protagonist asks what that was, and Nano explains that boxing was chosen from the optional martial arts for this tutorial. He's surprised, and Nano adds that the teaching runs on its own, building results by analyzing the enemy's movements every 0.01 seconds. The protagonist still doesn't fully get it, but he knows it was boxing, so he asks if she can use his martial techniques instead. Nano says the analysis is complete and asks if he wants that. He agrees. Mugwan asks if he learned boxing too, saying the boy clearly has more training. He then charges again. Sure, that won't work twice. Nano switches defense mode from boxing back to martial techniques. The protagonist keeps seeing where the attacks are coming from and dodges them with ease. Mugwan realizes every single strike missed, and the protagonist finally counters, landing 4 clean hits to his body. In the middle of the beating, we get the villain's sad past. Someone once told Mugwan to do his best because if he succeeded, the Lord would leave that woman and come back to her. His mother told him he had to win everything. Shaking, she grabbed his hair and he agreed. But as time passed, she started blaming him, saying everything went wrong because he failed at everything, if only that other woman had never appeared. Then she twisted it again, saying it wasn't her fault at all, it was because he couldn't do anything right. She even choked him and called him a mistake. He wonders why he remembered that now. Then he grows more and more angry as he looks at the protagonist and realizes he's losing. He declares that he'd never lose to a commoner and rushes in again with dark Tarnay Gong. But the protagonist catches his head with ease and drives him to the ground, slamming him down so hard he ends up sprawled out like a sack of potatoes. He starts ranting that because of a bastard like him, but the protagonist cuts him off and says he's just getting what he deserves. The lackeys can't believe it. He really beat someone the 2 of them together couldn't take down. They remember saying just 10 days ago that the boy had no Nigong, and now they don't know what to do. The protagonist asks if they want a beating too, and they shake their heads like crazy. So he orders them to carry Mukyong away fast. They all rush over to ask if the prince is okay, while the protagonist thinks that with more power and authority, people might obey him like that too. But the prince throws a fit, telling them not to touch him. He'll walk on his own. They still try to help, but he keeps cursing his brother, asking why he didn't finish the job. The protagonist says that if the second test weren't a group test, he would have cracked his skull open. Mook-young says that's just a weak excuse. The protagonist answers that if he pushes him again, he'll really do it. Meshk starts trembling and tells him to try, but he can't even stand up straight. The protagonist says he's leaving and tells him to stay there barking. Mook-young calls him back, but he knows if he comes any closer, he'll just get wrecked again. Then the protagonist heads straight home, thinking how close that was. Without Nano, he would have lost. He may learn faster than everyone else, but that can't beat real experience. Just knowing techniques won't make him like the teacher. If he wants to reach that level, he needs Nikong and real battle experience. Still, he knows the 6th clan won't let this go. First, he has to learn how to properly use what he already has. So he calls Nano and asks how many functions he's used so far. She checks the record.
She says he's only used 3 functions, though the boy doesn't even know what 3 means. Nano is surprised that's all he's used, then says he hasn't gone beyond that, according to the record stored in her internal memory. He realizes that must mean she has many more abilities, so he asks Nano to explain exactly what she can do. She says the manual can be sent straight to his brain and asks if he accepts. He agrees. Then she says in extra language, English will also be trained. He then transfers so he can understand better. He realizes that's the strange language she sometimes speaks, and agrees to that too. Both the manual and English are sent into his mind, and he gets hit with another shock. The transfer finishes, and he gets another sharp jolt to the head. It's way more info than usual, but aside from feeling dizzy, he thinks he won't throw up. He realizes this is amazing and starts checking through it. As he sees everything Nano can do, he's stunned. One function lets him replay fights in augmented reality. That means he can build the combat experience he's been lacking. Nano says a full body scan is needed to make the simulation, and when he asks for Mook-young's data, she says there isn't enough, though she can still make a version based on their last fight. It's not perfect, but he wants to try it right away, so he decides to begin. He heads to an empty, flat field, figuring no one is around. Nano activates the program, and a 3D figure appears in front of him. He quickly realizes it's an augmented reality fighter, only he can see it. Before the match starts, Nano asks him to choose the impact level, the amount of pain he'll feel from attacks. 100% means normal pain. Thinking it won't be that bad, he picks 100. The simulation starts at full impact. The fake opponent immediately calls him a commoner and tells him to come at him. That ticks him off, and he asks why the simulation kept that attitude too. Then he grins. During the second test, he can't really beat this guy up, but here he can do whatever he wants since it's just a copy. The fake Mook-young warns that if he won't come forward, then he will. He attacks with the first Spring Clan technique, fleeing spring formation. The protagonist is shocked by how exact the copy is. The strike almost lands, but he dodges at the last second and tries to counter from behind. The other side was ready for that. The fake Mook-young mocks him, says that trick won't work, and slams him in the stomach again. The blow sends him flying. He asks why it hurts so much, and Nano explains that the nano machine recreated the same pain from his earlier fight using data from his brain. She offers to lower the impact, but he stubbornly says it's fine and keeps going. The fake fighter keeps insulting him and dares him to attack again. That only makes him madder, and this time he charges in for real. After a long stretch of fighting, he ends up flat on the ground. He asks Nano for the time, and she says it's somewhere between 9 and 11 at night. He realizes he fought the simulation 15 times, and only won the last one. The first round ended after just 5 formations, and he couldn't even defend himself properly. Against the real guy, he would have been crushed.
Nano says this kind of experience is raising his skill, and if he keeps training and uses butterfly dance more often, he'll get stronger. He can't believe he lost to someone using only 3 formations and basic moves. Still, he vows that in 7 days, this copy won't stand a chance. Later, at the academy dorms, he asks which bed is his. The moment he walks in, everyone stares at him in fear. He thinks it's ridiculous. They're acting like this just because he beat up an heir. Then one cadet steps up and calls him Prince. He points out where his bed is, which surprises him, and everyone wonders what that guy is up to, so he asks why the sudden change. The cadet says Muk-young already cast him aside, so he has nothing left to lose. He's doomed either way, so he'll bet everything on this boy. He introduces himself as Cadet 23, Hobong, and asks to serve the first prince, Chon-yo-woon, as his new master. The room erupts and whispers. Swearing loyalty to a prince with no real power sounds crazy. The protagonist asks what he means by serving him, and Hobong says he regrets everything he did before. He begs to be accepted as a servant and allowed to help however he can. He pauses to think having a servant is new for someone who's always had trouble trusting people. Hobong keeps begging him to accept, since no one would ask for that without being serious, especially in front of a lord. He finally agrees. Hobong's eyes light up. He thanks him and promises to do his best. Then Muk-young shows up, saying he was gone for a bit and somehow this stupid mess happened. The bald one looks at Hobong, calls him an insect, and asks who he thinks he's pledging loyalty to. Hobong sees both of them and gets scared, but he knows he can't show it. The protagonist cuts in and asks who Muk-young thinks he is, calling his servant an insect. Then he says the real insect here is Muk-young, and calls him trash. Muk-young freezes and asks what he just said. The protagonist pushes him, asking if he has something to say back. Then he adds, "What, are you scared?" Muk-young loses it, curses him as a bastard commoner, and rushes him. He tries to land a hit, but the protagonist gives him one sharp chop to the neck and drops him face first out cold. He says Muk-young is nothing compared to the simulation version, and Hobong thinks he definitely picked the right master. Then the protagonist asks Muk-young if he wants to try again. Instead, Muk-young backs off and walks past him, warning him to enjoy this while it lasts. Having one servant changes nothing. Everyone notices he avoided the fight. Even so, they know his status is still powerful, but maybe Chon-yo-woon really could change the academy. A week later, on the day of the second test, everyone gathers at the training field. An instructor says they've already been taught everything they need, and from here on out, they're responsible for themselves. He asks if they understand, and they all agree. They all answer yes. Then he reminds them that, as explained before, groups 1 to 4, 5 to 8, and 9 to 12 will be matched by drawing lots. First, the leaders of groups 1 to 4 are told to step forward. People start asking if the leaders of groups 3 and 4 changed. Group 1 still has Chon-yo-woon of the Demon Clan as leader, so they guess the others probably changed too. Mung notices there were 2 changes. The first match will be Group 1 against Group 3, and the second will be Group 2 against Group 4. One side gets excited and cheers for their leader, while the other looks miserable. Next, Muk-young calls up the leaders of Groups 5 to 8. He's surprised the leaders changed again, especially in Group 8. Then he's even more shocked when he sees the protagonist is now Group 8's leader. His jealous sister thinks she warned that idiot Muk-young enough times. After the afternoon training, he watches the other teams for a while. They're still practicing in groups, not realizing their strategies are being leaked. Deciding there's nothing else to learn, he says he's going to train. Just then, someone calls him. It's his sister.
He asks what she wants, barely giving her any attention, and she steps in front of him to force him to look at her. He asks what she's doing. She gets annoyed and asks if he's really going to ignore her. He plays dumb, so she snaps that she thought hard before coming to him, and this is how he treats her. He shoots back that the Spring Clan people are idiots and tells her not to talk to him.
She calls him unbearable and says she'll make this quick so he better listen. Then she shows the bandages on her arm. He asks if she got hurt. She says it happened last night when she went out to train alone and got ambushed. He asks who would dare do that. She says she doesn't know. The attacker wore a mask. Masked or not, he says, she got attacked because she was careless. She tells him to stop talking nonsense. That's not what happened. He asks if she's warning him to be careful now, and she says he should know there's a good chance they'll come after him next since they're in the same group. He asks what she means. She reminds him that the cadets were split into 4-person teams and their enemy would be chosen later. When he says that has nothing to do with him, she asks why they'd bother splitting them into 4s if they could just have one full group fight another. He says he still doesn't see her point, so she tells him to think. Since each team already knows the people inside its own group, they can figure out exactly who they'll fight with. Then he understands. The rules were announced early on purpose, so team leaders could be targeted before the match. She admits he's not as dumb as he looks. If the leader is gone, it'll be hard for the team to hold formation. That's why she's warning him to be careful with the test tomorrow and not wander around alone. She doesn't want to hear that an error got kicked out before even taking the second test. With that, she leaves him behind. He mutters that the weakest one came all the way to warn him. She's overdoing it, but he still decides to be more careful and wonders if he should bring Hubei along. Meanwhile, an assassin is already watching him up close, eager to strike. That night, Nanu tells him it's getting late. He asks what his win rate is against the Qianya wounds simulation, and she says it's around 60%. He remembers bragging that he'd beat him easily in a week, but even now he's only at 60. Nanu says his skills and formation control improved a lot after 106 training sessions. Based on her analysis, he should be happy with his progress soon. He asks if she's trying to comfort him. She says it's just the result of her analysis. He chuckles, calls that kind of cute, and heads back to the dorm. On the way back that night, he realizes someone is following him. So he stops. Then he hears fighting nearby. He heads toward the noise to check it out. When he gets there, it's too dark to see well, but someone seems to be down on the ground. He tells Nanu to turn on night vision, and she links it to his eyes. Now he can see clearly. Myun is fighting someone, and the masked attacker is all over him. That sword is already covered in blood, and the attacker keeps pressing Myun, who can barely defend himself. One strike nearly takes off his ear. Myun jumps aside, then barely avoids another hit. Watching this, the Protoss realizes the masked man is skilled enough to completely overwhelm him and starts wondering who he really is. Meanwhile, as Myun falls, he feels his knee and a sharp pain throws him off balance. The masked man notices right away and rushes in to finish it. The Protoss doesn't want to help him, but he can't let the team leader die before the test, so he tells the masked man to stop. The attacker notices someone else nearby and goes after the boy, but the Proto dodges and aims for his stomach. At least, that was the plan. The masked man slips behind him before the hit lands. The Proto realizes the guy widened the gap before he could strike. He's experienced, and his level is hard to read. Then the attacker notices a second presence and gives up on the mission, disappearing at once. The Proto thinks about chasing him, but decides not to. Myun is left on the ground, furious. When the Proto asks if he's okay, The guy acts offended about being helped by a commoner and spits out an insult. So the proto says he can stay there a little longer. But when he gets back to the dorm, he's carrying the bald cadet and dragging in a badly injured Mune, too. Everyone asks what happened. He says he'll explain later. Just treat them first. Then Bong asks if he's hurt, but he says no, he's fine. He asks Nanu if the bald cadet will live, and she checks the wounds. She says it's a sword cut, about 4 centimeters wide and 2 millimeters deep. As long as it doesn't get infected, he should be okay. So the proto thinks he's fine, until someone shouts that the prince is bleeding. He realizes he overlooked it because of Jareen. The prince is losing a lot of blood. The wound looked minor, so why is it bleeding this much? He tells Bong to get the leader fast, and the boy runs off. When the leader arrives, he treats him right away. The boy asks how Mune is, and the leader says they can save him. But there's a problem. Perhaps what it is, he says Mune won't be walking normally for a while. Mune can't believe it. Everyone starts worrying. They're in trouble if their leader can't walk. Their leader puts Mune to sleep for now and says he'll take him to the infirmary. The proto stops him, saying there's another injured cadet too. Bong offers, but the leader says he'll do it himself. The proto follows him and says Cadet 80 also hit his head, though not as badly as Cadet 4. The leader says he knows, but thought someone else would bring him. The proto asks if he left that boy there as bait to draw someone out, and the leader says he's not as dumb as he looks. Why? Because another team thought this would make them fail, and he was surprised to hear that boy got hurt too. That's all he wanted to say. Then he tells him to bring the cadet. He also says it's time to head back, since he knows he's not allowed out at night. The boy says he understands. Before leaving, the leader warns him to learn how to fight with what he has. The boy asks what he meant by that, and starts wondering if this happened to the other teams too. He thought it was tied to the test format, but now it seems bigger than that. Something is wrong with this second test. He thinks it over for a bit while watching some ants, and realizes that attacking the team leader would make beating that team tomorrow much easier. Now it starts to click. He understands why they announced the matchups in advance. They wanted this to happen. He accepts the delay and realizes they're being pushed to act like demons without being bound by the rules. Meanwhile, Team 8 is falling apart, whining that they're doomed. The proto walks in and asks how long they plan to keep this up. Just because their leader got hurt, they're already done. They argue they're not shaken, but he points out they're sitting around complaining instead of picking a new leader and making a new plan. They ask who could even lead them, since only Prince Moon got that training. Then Bak asks why they think like that. Their prince is right there. Their master. Still, nobody seems convinced, since he's only the 7th prince. They all look at each other, but Cadet 38 agrees with the choice, and another cadet does too. Everyone says that since he never backed down from fighting Moon, he might be even better. Soon, they all agree he should lead. Some still wonder what they can even do without Moon there. But for now, the most important thing is passing the test. So the proto asks if everyone agrees, and when they do, he says, that's great. He came up with something during formation training. Then, around midnight, in teammates' dorm, the proto asks Nanu to activate night vision. Once it's on, he scans everything around him and quietly makes his way to the truth. After reaching the upper floor, he wonders how many times he's visited Team 7's dorm that day. Then asks Nanu if anyone is still awake. She scans room 7 and says everyone inside is deeply asleep. He mutters that they finally went down. Then he asks if the person who attacked Moon is in there. After comparing the body types of all 20 people, Nanu says, no, that doesn't matter. He starts paralyzing most of the team, then moves toward their leader. The leader asks who's there. Startled, the boy still manages to knock him out quickly. He realizes the boy woke up just sensing his presence.
As expected of a leader, he's sharp. The proto had assumed no one could recognize someone in a mask in the dark. Then he uses pressure points to paralyze the kid. He says the boy won't be walking for a while. His muscles and meridians were hit. It's not personal, so don't hold a grudge.
Now he wonders if he should hit another room too, since he already crippled Team 7. But Team 5's leader is Wan Hyo, and the person he saw wasn't a woman. Besides, Wan Hyo shouldn't be able to beat Mun in martial arts. That means the attacker must be on Team 6. Nanu says 16 people from Team 6 are in deep sleep. The boy catches that number. Team 6 has 20 members. Even counting the 3 women, someone is still missing. He asks if any of the people there could be the masked attacker. Nanu says no, so he concludes that person isn't there, which probably means that missing person is the masked one. If they're on the first floor, they may have already noticed him moving around. So what should he do? Then he stops himself. Why is he overthinking this? There's no rule saying only leaders can be targeted. Here, it's eye for an eye.
The next day, during the second test, as he picks something from the selection box, Myung notices that if he's leading Team 8, then that Spring Clan boy must have been injured. He sees they understood the real meaning of the test, just as he expected. This time, the participants won't disappoint him. He asks if everyone is ready, and they all say yes. Myung tells them they've been preparing for this test all along, and he expects worthy victories. A lot of them still don't fully get what he means, and they head down the stairs while looking around. Then the proto notices something strange. Those eyes look familiar. He tells Nanu to analyze him. She checks that boy's body structure and finds a perfect match, including height and build. The boy starts to smile. He found him. The second test begins. Round 1, Team 1 versus Team 3. They face off, and the rules are simple. The team that suppresses the other wins. Myung gives the signal to start.
Both sides charge in, and Myung starts directing his team. Myung is surprised because he's using a diagonal formation. They open from the flanks, with shields crashing into shields. Myung shouts for everyone to hold their ground and not get pushed back. Then the hits start landing. Sword strikes, shield blows, and arrows. It gets ugly fast. Several fighters go down with serious injuries. Myung wins easily in the end by taking down the enemy leader. With nothing left to do, the defeated side admits the loss. Myung thinks it wasn't because the other team was weak. It was just boring. He congratulates Team 1 on the win and announces that they and their leader passed the second test. Then Team 4 keeps beating Team 2, and after that, it's time for the next match. When it's his team's turn, Chan gets fired up, but the others look scared. He asks if they've already lost their nerve. Then he asks them straight out if they're nervous.
He knows the sudden leader change shook them, and admits he's a little tense too. But if they lose, they're out of the academy. It's too early to give up, so they need to fight with everything they have. More than that, he's angry. He refuses to let the coward who hurt their former leader win. His words hit the team hard, and he tells them that if they feel the same way, they won't lose. That's all he says. They're just going to win. The whole team's spirit rises at once. Myung notices Chan knows how to fire up the cadets, though that alone won't guarantee victory. Still, he's about to find out whether he is really a panther or just a house cat. The match begins, and Team 5's clan leader turns out to be his sister. She says she wanted to face Team 8 only if Myung was leading it. According to her, a fight over succession doesn't suit someone like Chan. She says leaving the academy now would be better for his miserable life. Then she orders her team to attack.
The protagonist tells Nana to activate the AR strategy tutorial. She does it right away and brings up the tactical guide. MC tells his team to hold their ground. Nana calls out a number. Chan says the enemy is switching into an arrow formation. Nana tells them to answer with a layered formation. He says this is exactly what he expected. They can only try to overpower them head-on, so he orders pattern number 6. Myung watches closely. He sees Team 8 take a layered formation. That makes him wonder how Chae-yun could make such a foolish choice right at the start. Myung thinks that formation is useless with a weak leader. Even if the right guardian taught him martial arts, this feels reckless. He starts to wonder if he expected too much. The girl mocks the protagonist, asking if he really thinks he can clash with true heirs. She slams her shield at him, but then freezes in shock. She can't believe what just happened. Chae-yun blocked her 10 stars attack. Myung immediately realizes MC has a strong defensive skill. He knows his inner energy still trails hers, but with mana pushing it up to teacher level, he can still come out ahead. That thought excites him. She feels herself getting pushed back, and if she doesn't switch formations now, the weaker fighters behind her will collapse. Stunned, she wonders what this bastard did. All she can do is fall back. She orders everyone to retreat and use pattern number 1. Nana reports the enemy returned to standard formation, so Chan switches to and orders pattern number 3. She gives a small smile. Then she taunts him. Does he really think Team 1's trick will work on her? His inner energy is impressive, she says, but he's still a terrible leader. She orders her team into pattern number 6. Since his inner energy isn't below hers, she decides to break his formation apart with a spear charge and 1 strike. Once his team is split up, she plans to finish Chae-yun herself. Her side charge is forward all at once. Both teams start shifting positions. People begin asking what's going on. Chae-yun's formation keeps changing. The movement makes no sense to them. She tells her team not to panic and to brace for attacks from both sides. Then the protagonist suddenly orders pattern number 2. That throws her completely off. It's an arrow formation at the worst possible moment. Her side panics, and she tells everyone to focus forward, but Chae-yun changes plans again. Now the threat comes from behind, so they rush to guard the left. The princess demands to know what's happening and what this commoner is doing. While she starts to lose control, Chae-yun stays perfectly calm. Before long, his team closes in a circle and traps them completely. That's when she realizes the formation numbers were a trick. The night before, MC had told his team they'd use the numbers from other groups against their enemies. When he called for changes, his team would switch using the real patterns, while the enemy got confused by the fake numbers that was his plan. The princess is furious that this bastard toyed with her. Chae-yun gives the order to attack. His team tightens the circle, and the fighters trapped in the middle start shaking and dropping their shields. She yells at them, asking who told them they could throw their shields away, but they've already lost the will to fight. She panics, saying people will laugh at her. Everyone will laugh at her. Then she stares at Chae-yun, calling him a piece of trash. Enraged, she rushes him and screams for him to die. She attacks with her blazing sword strike. He drops his shield, draws his sword, and charges too. He deflects her blow and slices her face, though she cuts his leg in return. Even so, he doesn't stop and keeps pressing forward. Then he lands a clean hit, a brutal one. Her arm is severed and goes flying. Everyone is left stunned by Chae-yun's skill. She can't believe it either. Her arm is gone. She starts screaming for it in total panic. Others shout that they need to stop the bleeding. Chae-yun looks at his sword and wonders if this happened because it wasn't a real blade. He had neutralized her attack in 5 movements, but the first one hadn't been fully complete. She keeps screaming that she'll kill him, while the protagonist realizes sword training has its limits after all. Team 8 wins, and MC passes the second test as their leader. Everyone congratulates him on pulling off that victory. Myung thinks Cheon still lacks the inner energy needed to fully use the 7 connections of the butterfly, but just from that movement, he's almost at COB's level. He starts wondering what that drunk actually did, because this can't just be from good teaching. In only 21 days, he improved in every way. His tactics were excellent, and he even dared to cut off Myung's sister's arm. Myung starts thinking the protagonist might be a genius sent from heaven. For a moment, he wonders if he should have made him his disciple before COB. But the protagonist owns the academy, and that thought doesn't sit well with him. The other cadets realize MC beat the Sun Clan's heir. They wonder if he'd been hiding his martial arts all this time, and decide they need to remember him, because today, he showed everyone what he can really do. Then the third group of contestants heads to the arena. They move down to fight next. The boy who had been targeting the leaders thinks to himself that he thought he'd avoided defeat, but that's not what shook him. He'd nearly been hit by him. What really shocked him was that the guy he had beaten before used the time he was gone to ruin everyone's legs. And that person was one himself. He admits the boy did well to fool everyone. People notice everyone on Team 7 except the leader is limping, so they think they can crush them with full attack.
They don't know who did it, but they're grateful. So they charge hard with Formation 6. Team 7 complains they can't do anything with their legs like this, but that filthy little killer tells them to be grateful for the rest of their lives. Then he rushes in alone with an arrow formation. One of them thinks he's an idiot. What good is a formation if his whole team is limping? But his shield is knocked out of his hand in an instant. It goes flying, and the boy drives his sword into the man's chest. Anger spreads through the group, and someone orders all the limping fighters to push forward. Even so, he really does it. He keeps knocking everyone down before they can get back up, then charges again and overwhelms them. In the end, he wins, almost by himself. After that, he looks at Xi'an and says, he's next. The protagonist realizes he's made himself one very annoying enemy this time. Team 7 wins the battle, and back in the Academy's main building on the first floor, in the director's office, they report on the participants who failed up through Team 5. The director says a lot of them failed again this time, and Runjin asks if he means the big clans. He says the ones without clans usually aim to serve the ones who do, so that's not a big issue. But heirs from major clans may feel it was unfair. They would have passed if this hadn't been a group test. He adds that this wouldn't happen under the Academy Guide's usual rules, but Runjin says they have no choice. If they stop judging performance this way, the great clans might take it as an insult. They agree those heirs will still grow well in their clans, but it's a shame the smaller clans lost their chance at the medicine ball and access to the library. In fact, the 2 who passed should be gathering at the library now. Chan heads for the library. When he arrives, he says it looks even bigger than the main building. He figures the other cadets already visited the first floor while he was in the infirmary, so today they'll probably be allowed onto the second floor. Then he remembers Siobhan telling him not to waste time on pointless things. He should master the butterfly technique and breathing method to raise his chances of passing the test. Cheon asks if those pointless things included the library, and Siobhan says yes. Since MC is already learning 4th and 5th floor techniques thanks to him, Siobhan says he still has a lot of time left. He remembers that, but with Nano, he plans to analyze as much of the 1st and 2nd floors as he can. Then he steps inside and notices. He reaches the 1st floor and hears they only get 2 hours here, so he needs to move fast. He tells Nano, "I'll flip through the pages, just keep scanning." She starts analyzing the 5 sword mastery arts, then one book after another. By the end, she's gone through a huge pile. He asks how much time is left. Nano says there's still 1 hour. When he asks how many books she scanned, the count is 55, including the sword mastery one. He tells her not to send it all to his brain yet. It's too much at once. He wonders if he should check the smaller books too. Then he notices an old man standing beside a huge monument. The man looks like a veteran, so the boy asks if he guards the first floor. He also asks why there's a tomb in the middle of the library. The old man studies him for a moment. He can tell right away who this boy is. The seventh heir. Then he explains that the tomb was left by the founder, the ancient heavenly demon. That shocks the boy. The guard adds that it was carved from sapphire. The boy notices writing on it, almost like a poem. Then he sees something stranger. It was carved by finger. The guard says someone must have poured nagon into a fingertip to scratch words into sapphire, something even a sword would struggle to mark.
Most people get lost in the books and ignore it, but he noticed the tomb, maybe because it's in his blood. The boy admits he almost walked past it too. The guard says that's only natural. With so many books around, who would notice a tomb? He's guarded this place for over 20 years, and no one has cared about it, not even the heavenly family's descendants. Then he says he's taken enough of the boy's time and tells him to get back to studying. The boy says goodbye, but when he moves behind the stone, he finds blade marks. It looks like someone tried to hide something there. He immediately asks Nano to analyze it. She scans the tomb's surface. According to her reading, there are sword marks on the stone. The boy is stunned. Who would do that to the ancestor's tomb? Nano adds that the marks came from 2 different people, which shocks him even more. Looking at it normally, he still can't make sense of it. So he asks Nano for a 3D augmented view, and she brings it up. Now he can clearly see the huge gap in force and angle between the cuts. It's obvious 2 people were involved, and he starts to wonder if one of them was trying to cover the original scratches. Maybe those messy cuts were made on purpose. Thinking there might be something hidden underneath, he asks Nano to separate the 2 sets and leave only the earliest marks. She does exactly that. The boy is stunned. Those aren't random cuts. They're sword movements, part of an unknown form. He realizes the marks record sword techniques from a style he's never seen. Still, he can't fully understand the move just by staring at the lines, so he asks if Nano can analyze the marks and recreate them in augmented reality. She says yes, but first she needs to measure the sapphire's toughness to estimate the user's power. He asks how she plans to do that. Before she answers, the guard walks back over and asks why he isn't reading. Caught off guard, the boy listens as the man points out he's staring at the stone and asks if he saw the back of it. The guard says it's a shame. There have long been rumors that the ancestor left a sword technique from his moment of enlightenment there. The boy is shocked that these marks might be tied to that. The guard says no one knows who did it, but defacing the stone like that is terrible. Maybe someone did it to steal the ancestor's insight. But now the boy starts wondering if this was really just vandalism. The guard says he's going back to his patrol and that the boy can look as long as he wants. The boy is glad he's leaving. Nano finally answers. She can measure the sapphire's resistance if he places his hand on it. He thinks that should have been obvious, so he puts his hand on the tomb and his fingerprint scan starts reading the material. Nano finishes and says that if diamond is rated a 10, the sapphire is a 7. The boy realizes that's still incredibly tough, which makes him wonder even more who ruined the original mark. Nano says she can now simulate the sword cuts in augmented reality using the stone's resistance data. That catches him off guard. Then a human figure appears right in front of him. He tries to ask who it is, but Nano cuts him off. No talking during the simulation. Before he can complain, she interrupts again and says the replay is starting. The 3D figure takes its stance, then it moves. Its sword drops in a stunning arc, and the follow-up cuts are incredible. He asks Nano, "Is that really just one move?" She says the analysis shows several linked forms, but based on his martial arts system, it counts as a single move. He can barely believe it. Even the butterfly technique with only 8 forms takes him nearly half a year to master. Compared to that, this is on another level. He feels like it can't be broken. He never expected to find big on the first floor. He tells Nano to keep analyzing it for now. He'll transfer it later. As she works, he thinks he almost missed this treasure because of those extra scratches. Whoever made them must be pretty awful. Still, thanks to that, he found the hidden move. Nano reports that after removing the fake cuts, she found 45 connected movements. He can hardly process that number. She repeats that 45 sword movements were recorded. He realizes the marks weren't just there to hide the technique. They recorded every step of it. A theory starts forming, and he asks Nano to show it in augmented reality. She begins by demonstrating the first movement, then the second, third, 10th, 20th, 30th, and all the rest. The boy notices the motions keep getting cleaner and more complete. Finally, the full simulation ends. He's sweating just from watching. Then he asks Nano to make the first move and the 45th move fight each other in augmented reality. She says that's possible. 2 figures appear in front of him, and his shock only grows. Nano starts the fight at 2 clashes, and the 45th move quickly takes off the first one's head. He's stunned. The first move was completely crushed. The move he thought was perfect wasn't being hidden at all. Those 45 sword traces were a full record of the long process of creating a counter to the original move. He goes back to the guard and says he has one question. Does only this floor have a tomb? The guard says he's only worked here, so he can't be sure. But as far as he knows, every floor has one. The boy smiles and tells Nano to get ready. They're heading to the 2nd floor. Soon he arrives at the library's 2nd floor. He looks around and sees the others are still there. Since they get 2 hours on the 1st floor and 3 on the 2nd, that makes sense. There, he spots Zion and Chan reading quietly. He figures the other heirs never came because they were already confident in their own techniques. Seeing one of them studying low-level martial arts, he decides that boy must be more careful than he looks. So he keeps that in mind and slips past the others. He heads straight for the tomb, finds one there too, and checks behind it. Just like he expected, more sword marks. The surface is covered in scratches, and he tells Nano to do the same analysis as before. She says the same pattern from the 1st floor appears here. The first set contains a move with 24 forms. The second set, from another person, records 56 sword movements. That number makes him pause. It means they needed even more research here to break the original move than on the 1st floor. He wants to watch it right away, but too many people are around, so he tells Nano to store the sword movements in her memory. He figures he's now collected 4 unmatched moves and hopes to transfer them to his brain soon. Then he tells Nano to keep analyzing. Meanwhile, he starts flipping through books near the others. He makes a lot of noise and they get annoyed, wondering what this kid is doing. They think it's hard enough to learn by reading carefully, but he's just turning pages non-stop. In the end, they force themselves to focus again. There's only 1 hour left, so he isn't worth their attention. While that happens, the protagonist has Nano scan every book she can, building up a massive amount of knowledge. As everyone grows more irritated, Ziyun Sen looks over at the boy flipping through books like that, and he becomes a little curious. Nano reports that she's scanned 156 books in total. He tells her to analyze everything they got today and save it in the program data. He thinks that should be enough. Now, only one thing matters. He's sure the original butterfly technique ranks among the top 10 martial arts, but he knows better than to get overconfident. No matter how amazing a martial art is, true mastery takes thousands of repetitions of every form and movement. And most important of all, experience matters. He remembers his master saying real understanding only comes after hardship and many fights. That's why the academy is the best place to gain experience against all kinds of warriors. Now he just needs to test Nano's augmented reality skill. If it works, he can build up a lot of real combat experience. With that in mind, he heads to the supervisor. Since it's already late, the man marks his attendance and tells him he can leave. Then the supervisor recalls that someone had asked when the boy would be coming out. Still, he brushes it off. The boy wonders if someone is waiting for him, but decides it can't be that important right now. The solo training rooms were supposed to open after the second test, and he wants to get there fast to transfer the moves. So he heads to the Demonic Academy's private training area. When he gets there, the leader of Team C from the second test steps in front of him. The guy says he searched everywhere since the boy wasn't in the dorm. Seeing him there at last, the boy asks what he wants. The other cadet shoots back, asking why he's pretending not to know, and asks if Xion really thought he wouldn't notice that he was the one who sabotaged the legs of his team. That starts getting on the boy's nerves. He's too busy for this nonsense. The cadet says the bloodlust coming off him makes it look like he wants a fight, then asks who told him to leave him alone. That jab only makes the boy even angrier. The other one notices he still isn't taking the bait like someone else would, thinking another hot-headed brother would have snapped already. So he realizes this boy isn't weak at all, and decides he'll have to go all out. But then someone shows up and calls out to them. By then, both of them are so locked in on the coming fight that they don't even notice. Xion gets annoyed, shocked they didn't even see him, so he steps right between them. That finally makes them stop in surprise, and the protagonist realizes this is his brother from the Blade clan. He says they're impressively focused, just what he expected from the team leaders of the second test. Then he apologizes for making them wait and asks if he can speak first. He says it'll only take a second. He even lowers his head and asks it as a favor, which shocks the other boy. An heir is bowing to another cadet. He protests, asking what he means by speaking first when he spent all day chasing him down, telling him to get lost. But Yu-chan calmly asks what he was supposed to do when he'd been waiting because he wanted to see him. That only makes the other cadet angrier. He snaps, asking how Yu-chan dares to look down on him, and attacks. Yu-chan notices how fired up he is, and knocks the strike aside with ease. Then he almost slices the boy's neck with his hand, stopping right by his chin. He asks, "How's that?" The protagonist sees it at once. Yu-chan shut down a move he'd only seen once with a simple formation. That means his skill is on a whole different level. The other boy realizes he has no chance and wonders how someone this strong ever got hit by that other guy. Yu-chan points out that his footwork is bad and wobbles with every step, then asks if his ribs are injured. Now it's obvious this man is far beyond a normal cadet. Even in perfect condition, he still wouldn't win. Yu-chan says it'll be quick and tells him to wait. The boy just turns around and says he can do whatever he wants before walking off. Yu-chan remarks that he's quick to anger, while Xion wonders what he wants with him. Maybe he plans to remove him before the next test. Whatever the reason, he can't fight him now. Then the boy turns to the protagonist. The protagonist quickly tells Nanu not to use battle tutorial mode in augmented reality. He wants the butterfly sword technique. Nanu obeys, switches to action command mode through the battle system, and sets the technique. But Yu-chan stops him and asks him to wait, wondering why he looks so serious. Maybe it's because of his position. Still, he says it's fine.
This is their first meeting as brothers with the same father. Then he greets him properly and says it's nice to finally meet him. The protagonist can't believe what he's hearing. He asks if Yu-chan is messing with him, getting seriously mad. Yu-chan wonders if he didn't like that, then figures it makes sense after how the sixth clan treated him. The protagonist asks if he really expects him to play nice when he already knows all that. Yu-chan says no, he just wanted their first meeting to go well because he likes him now. After all, they're walking the same path of the sword. The protagonist asks if that's really the only reason. Yu-chan says yes and asks if he knows how shocked he was when he cut off the right arm of the heir from the Song clan.
He says he became a huge fan right then. The protagonist tells him to quit the nonsense and say what he really wants. Yu-chan says there's no point dragging it out if getting close to him will take this long, so he says he won't repeat himself. He wants Jizan to work for the Blade clan. That's his real goal. The protagonist is caught off guard. The other boy notices, and Yu-chan thinks that reaction is only natural. Then, Shion asks if he's serious, but the boy says he waited in front of the library all that time, so why would this be a joke? He says he doesn't know about the others, but he doesn't see him as an enemy. He wants him in the right hand. Yu-chan asks if that's really how it sounded, but adds that becoming heir will be too hard for him anyway. The protagonist asks what he means. Yu-chan says he heard him. If he chooses the path of the sword, then they'll have to face each other, and he has no chance. But since he's become a true fan, he's offering him a bright future if they walk that road together. Isn't that wonderful? The protagonist wonders if Yu-chan really doesn't see him as someone who could stand against him. Then he refuses. Si-jun asks what he's talking about. The protagonist says Yu-chan won't be able to beat him, so he should stay out of his way if he wants to live. Gaijin is stunned and furious. Hearing that, Nanu warns that strong energy has gathered in the enemy's right hand. She tells him to use the second butterfly dance formation. Light butterfly circular motion, then step half a pace left. The protagonist wonders if it's already starting. He shifts into a fighting stance. Gaijin is surprised by that and laughs. Nanu then reports that the energy is fading. The opponent has stopped the attack. Gaijin says he got a little tense, but this makes things more fun. He brings up what the protagonist said about not standing in his way and says that part was actually pretty cool. Still, Si-jun notices only his mouth is smiling. To him, all this effort feels wasted. He says they'll meet again since they're walking the same path. But then he gathers energy in his hand again, and Nanu warns that the power there is surging. He swings and carves a huge slash beside the protagonist. The protagonist realizes that it's blade energy. His aura has formed a blade around his hand. The Chan simply says he doesn't have the strength to threaten him like that. The protagonist says he must have fully matured already if he can use blade energy barehanded. Then the rumor that he fought Mu Yang of the Black Clan evenly for the heir seat probably wasn't fake. Only now does he truly understand they're on completely different levels. So he speaks to the boy and says they'll meet again later. The protagonist is furious. After beating Mu Yang and driving Henri out of the academy, he thought they were on the same level. But then he forces himself to calm down, thinking he can't rush. His goal isn't just to catch up to them, it's to stand above them all. As he heads back to his quarters, Yu Chuan realizes the protagonist had read his attack from the start. He meant to cut off his right arm in one strike, but the boy moved out of the line before he could fully bring out his blade energy. That makes him think the protagonist really is different from everyone else. Meanwhile, in the Academy's private training room, the protagonist arrives and confirms this is the place. It's basically a tiny booth, barely big enough for him. There's not enough room to practice full formations with shadow step. Still, the walls feel so at least he can study in peace. And even if he can only gather internal energy here, that should be enough. He tells Nana to activate augmented reality, then orders her to simulate the formations analyzed from the sapphire tomb on the second floor. She starts at once, using an avatar to perform every attack. The boy is shocked again. It's faster and more complex than the first floor's version. Even with the final butterfly dance formation, he couldn't block a single move. He wonders how many people could stop that formation. Then Nana begins replaying the second, the third, and all the way to the 16th. The protagonist thinks it's completely insane. No one could master a technique like that without being obsessed with the sword. He can tell just by watching the progress. A clumsy, unnatural formation was refined by the 16th variation into something so perfect, it sends chills down his spine. Then he tells Nana to show the original formation, fighting against all 56 counters in sequence. And she starts the avatar battle before activating the mode. He enters focus mode and keeps winning. From the first form to the where he finally loses. When the test ends, Shin realizes that, just like on the first floor, the absolute forms were beaten by a gap of only one move. That makes him wonder what would happen if he faced that absolute form with the butterfly dance, since his sword form couldn't block any of the recorded attacks before. So he decides to test it. He lines up against a copy of himself. There has to be a way to beat it with the butterfly dance, and both sides get ready. Then they charge at each other. Nana reports that his brain activity is spiking, his blood flow is rising, and the energy in his abdomen is growing more active. While that happens, the simulation keeps running, and the clash in Cheon's mind turns into an all-out fight. Even so, he keeps cultivating through it. His progress seems really good until he suddenly wakes up and wonders what happened. He was sure he was locked in on the fight. So he asks himself if he fell into a trance. His body feels strange. He starts shaking and panic hits him. He quickly gathers his aura again and notices something shocking. His internal energy was equal to 30 years, but now it's 40. He wonders if he just had an epiphany. If he gained that even without Nana's help, then those forms really do deserve to be called Murum's best martial art. He can already feel that his butterfly dance is much sharper now. As he practices, he notices even the way he cuts through the air has changed. That breakthrough didn't just raise his internal energy. Something is wrong with his hand. He's actually materialized energy. He still can't form a full sword because he lacks the power. But after the medicine ball, he'll have the equivalent of 60 years of Negon. When that happens, the gap between him and Che will shrink a lot. He asks Nana how long he was in that state. She says 2 hours, and he's stunned. It lasted that long. Then he realizes it won't be easy to make his body catch up, especially since he has to return to the dorm. So he tells Nana to upload the forms from the first and second floor tombs, along with the 45th and 56th forms, straight into his brain. She starts the transfer, and he gets hit with brutal pain at once. He asks how long this will take, and Nana says her analysis estimates 10 hours to turn his muscles into an energy flow. That surprises him. It's not much longer than the butterfly dance, even if this needs a different martial art. But he has no choice. He says he'll have to leave for now and come back later. Back at the dorm, he notices a lot of cadets are missing when Bong walks up and greets his master. Che notices the papers in Bong's hand and realizes he's been practicing and memorizing what they studied in the library. He asks if Bong learned anything useful. Bong downplays it, saying it's just a second-rate martial art. He picked a footwork technique because that's where he's weak. The protagonist says this is when everyone has to push through the pain. The 4 days they were given to rest can't be wasted,
And if he wants to improve at all, he can't throw time away on useless things. The next day, he's already back in the private training room, suffering badly. When Nana says his muscles and energy flow are complete, as hibernation mode is canceled, he gets up and immediately starts vomiting. Nana quickly begins stabilizing the biological reaction from the transformation. Che thinks it worked, even though he feels completely wrecked. No matter how many times this happens, he still can't get used to it. Then he clenches his fist and notices the strength in his hand is on a whole different level. He feels even stronger than when he mastered the butterfly dance. So he takes off all his clothes and sees how built he's become. Those muscles look incredible. He can hardly believe it's his body.
For some reason, just looking at the wall fires him up. He gathers energy into his palm and sets his stance. On the other side, the leader of Team 6 is cultivating and blaming himself. He thinks his skills weren't enough and that he got too confident after injuring Mug 1. Ever since he saw the huge gap between himself and that blade user, he's known he has to train much harder to get his pride back. For now, he decides to put Sin in a side and aim higher. But then the wall beside him starts cracking. A second later, it explodes. And even the supervisors outside are shocked by the noise. The Team 6 leader gets blasted by the flying stones and starts bleeding, wondering if an assassin got in. Who would dare do this? Then he looks over and sees Shion in full berserk mode. The moment Shion realizes what he's done, he starts sweating hard. The Team 6 leader can't believe Shion caused it. People rush in to save him, shouting for him to stay awake.
Later, with the situation under control, the instructor scolds Shion. Private room or not, how did he blast a hole into another cadet's training room? If things had gone worse, that cadet could have died. They tell Zeon to be grateful Cadet 108 is still alive. Otherwise, he'd already be expelled. They keep tearing into him while he's still shaken. Then warn Shion they'll be filing a report. He can only apologize. A supervisor bans him from the first and second floor training rooms and orders him to use the basement rooms instead. If he breaks those two, he'll lose training room access for good. MC promises to be more careful. As he turns to leave, the supervisor thinks that breaking a stone wall like that means his internal energy has gone past normal limits. Meanwhile, he asks Nano why he suddenly became so strong. He never thought he could destroy that wall.
Nano explains that his muscles and energy flow have reached their peak, enough for his raw physical strength alone to leave marks on that highly durable stone. That shocks him. Then it clicks. The simulation was built by studying the marks left in the tomb, not the true motions themselves. That's why the goal was to leave marks on the stone, not to copy the form perfectly. He wonders how that idea would work with the dagger technique or the butterfly dance, but then notices he's already hit the limit of his current body. Nano says this is the result of body modification. It doesn't change his natural growth and still follows the growth data already estimated for him. He asks if that means he can become even stronger as he grows. Nano says yes, his limits will rise once he's fully grown. That gives him wild idea of trying to grow faster, but she says only time can do that. Even Nano can't force his body to mature. She can only simulate the result. Chien says that's enough for now.
Decides if she really could speed up growth, some parts of him might get a little too scary, if you know what I mean, down in the training hall basement. The protagonist thinks about the decades of movement data already pushed into his brain. He's nervous since this is his first time training the absolute technique that may have come from his demon ancestors in sight. He starts with the first one, sword absolute technique. He performs the move and is startled by it. He stops and tries again, but something feels off. No, that's not it. He just knows the move feels wrong. As he keeps trying to copy it, he improves and realizes the sword technique is destructive, and both attempts had that part right. Still, he can't understand why the absolute sword technique feels incomplete. It doesn't have the smooth, natural flow he saw in the simulation. So he tells Nano to compare the movement taken from the sapphire with the one he just performed.
She turns on augmented reality, and he sees the two motions side by side, the original and his version. That's when he notices his movements connect in an unnatural way, and even the ending is slower. He starts asking why. What's the problem? Is it easier when it's just one move? He says that even without the perfect flow, it shouldn't affect him this much, but then he starts thinking about energy flow and remembers that even the final form of the butterfly dance couldn't be used right without the correct flow of energy. Then it hits him. He feels cheated. What kind of joke is this? Leaving only the sword and hiding the energy flow is totally unfair. Then he remembers the words carved into the tomb. He asks Nano to show him the front of the first floor stone, and she projects it in front of him with augmented reality. The inscription says, "A mighty wind blows and the clouds rise high." After spreading his name across the continent, he returned home. And how could he not protect every corner of his nation with the mighty warriors he had gathered? Staring at those lines, Kaon wonders if there's a clue hidden in them. Nuno explains that the three-line poem is an old dynasty verse. MC didn't know that, and she adds that Liu Bang wrote it after defeating Shang Yu. That throws him off, since it wasn't written by the ancestral demon. So he wonders if any of the words were changed, but Nuno says no. That only makes him more annoyed. Still, he tells Nano to scan the stone for any clue. So she checks the whole surface. After the scan, she finds tiny holes under each character. Kaon looks closer and sees it too. Each character has a different number of dots, and he starts wondering what they mean. He can't figure it out just by touching them, so he studies the holes and wonders if they point to blood pressure points. 4 dots could mean 4 pressure points, but that doesn't really fit. He keeps thinking until he remembers the first book. Nano analyzed it was about pressure points, and each one had a number and a note. The 4th point would be the solar plexus, which feels wrong since energy flows should start lower in the Dantian area. That would make it 7 points, but then Kaon notices something. The character for great has 3 dots. Add 4 and it becomes 7. The next one, wind, has 9 dots, and the mark below adds 1 more. He keeps doing the math all the way to the last one, the 23rd point. That's when he realizes he got it. He found the hidden energy flow, and he gets fired up. Soon, he's laughing so loud that everyone outside hears him calling himself a genius. Sometime later, after eating, he decides to head to the basement and try the absolute technique again with the right flow. But then someone calls out to him. Kaon turns curious, and Yumpa asks for a moment. He wants to know if he would accept a duel. The protagonist hesitates, asking why he should. There's no reason to fight some stranger, especially when it's not even a test. He doesn't want to waste time. Yumpa keeps following him and guesses Kaon is just being selfish. Then he speaks up again. If MC beats him, he'll give him a gift and tell him about the 3rd test that catches his interest. So he goes off with him on the way. The protagonist asks why he'd make such a dumb offer just to get a duel. Yumpa says he needed to check MC's qualifications, which leaves him puzzled. Then Yumpa adds that it may not match the move Kaon used to cut off Reo's arm, but he'll show the Blade Clan's proud lunar energy technique. He tells him to come at him, so Yumpa charges in without holding back. He aims straight for the side of the protagonist's face, but Kaon slips aside and avoids every strike. Watching him, MC thinks he's way too slow. As Yumpa keeps pressing, he lands one heavy blow and sends him flying. Yumpa is launched backward and crashes down hard, coughing up blood. Even Kaon thinks he may have hit too hard and wonders if the guy died. Yumpa clutches his stomach in shock. He can't believe he lost that easily, especially after thinking he could at least do something after watching the protagonist fight Reo. As he gets back up, he says Kaon is amazing, just what you'd expect from the heavenly bloodline. He admits he thought MC was only around advanced martial artist level, and says he'll keep his promise and share the information. But MC stops him and asks why he wanted the duel at all. Win or lose, Yumpa didn't seem to gain anything from it. Yumpa can tell he still doesn't trust him, which is fair, so he repeats that he wanted to check the protagonist's qualifications. MC still doesn't follow, and Yumpa says he also needed to check his own standing for the third test. Kaon asks what that has to do with it. Yumpa says there's a high chance the third test will be done in groups.
He doesn't get it and points out that the academy said the test wouldn't be group-based anymore. Yumpa explains that it won't be like the second test, but it will still value individual strength a lot. Kaon notes that only advanced martial artists with this kind of skill and at least 30 years of internal energy can become high-rank warriors. So, among the cadets who made it past the second test, maybe only 20 count as advanced. To make up for low internal energy, they'll need a medicinal pill. Yumpa agrees. Once those are handed out, lots of cadets could suddenly reach that level. But there's still a big problem. The protagonist asks if it's advanced martial arts. Yumpa says yes. The library's second floor only has intermediate arts, so many will fail there. If the test isn't about creating advanced martial arts, then there's only one answer. They'll be given a secret manual for advanced techniques in this test, too. But MC says that's probably not all. Yumpa agrees.
If that were everything, it'd be too easy. If the third test, just learning, 80% of the cadets would pass. Then he says his father told him the manual should contain the 7 demon sword techniques, part of the demon sword formation used by all high-rank cult warriors. Kaon recognizes the name and thinks he's heard of it before. He remembers Gar Jungle saying those formations were made by the greatest swordsmen of that era, the Sword Demons. It was first created to counter the disciple of Soren's 18th and 108th formations, and among them, the 7 techniques are special, even if they're only advanced martial arts. When 12 people use them together, they form the 12-sword formation. With 36, it becomes the 36 formation, and with 108, the 108 formation. He is impressed that an advanced art can turn into something so terrifying. He recalls that an advanced martial artist using the 12 formation can beat a specialist, the 36 can beat a master, and the 108 can even bring down a grandmaster. Yumpa says his father told him to build a group of 12 people to learn the 7 techniques, and that surprises Kaon. Yumpa explains that's the core of the demon sword formation. Just the techniques alone isn't enough. Using the formation is incredibly hard. So hard that anyone below advanced level might not even understand it. The protagonist asks if that's why he wanted the duel, and Yumpa says exactly. He couldn't judge him from one move alone. He needed proof of MC's skill before deciding whether to invite him for the test. MC asks what invite he means. Yumpa says he forgot one important detail. For the third test, cadets are expected to work under leaders, from learning the arts to everything else. He heard those leaders were chosen based on the second test results. Kaon realizes the leaders will pick their own members, and Yumpa confirms it. Though any cadet can still refuse, that makes it seem like the third test is really meant for the 6 great clans and the young masters, not ordinary cadets. He quickly sees it as another stage in the battle of heirs. If a leader can't gather people and master the techniques and formation, He'll be disqualified right away. Then he remembers. Yumpa said cadets can refuse a group. Regular cadets have no real choice but to rely on the leaders if they want to pass, so he asks if that's why Yumpa said he'd invite him. Yumpa says yes. Gathering members and learning the techniques is only the start. If the final evaluation is duels or something similar, then a skilled leader matters even more. Kaon then remembers the reward Yumpa mentioned, and Yumpa says the reward is himself. The protagonist's face says he's not impressed at all, and he bluntly says nobody asked for that. MC asks if there's a chance Yumpa won't be picked as a leader, but Yumpa says no. He's confident he'll be chosen, and for passing the test, someone skilled like MC would be far more useful than an ordinary cadet. He admits that part makes sense. Yumpa does seem qualified to lead. Still, something feels off, especially since he would have to use that. So he asks why Yumpa picked him when there are other heirs and other leaders from the second test. Yumpa says he didn't want to admit it because the protagonist might get mad, but he already made the same offer to the young master of the Black Clan and the Sword Clan and got rejected. The protagonist says that makes sense, since they probably already formed their own groups. Now MC realizes he was Yumpa's last option. Yumpa admits it, adding that they also share the sword path. He really doesn't like hearing that. Yumpa starts to panic and says he's not asking the protagonist to become his subordinate.
He just wants the protagonist to use him to clear the third test. Then he asks him, please, to accept. Changsheng gives a faint smile, and Yumpa lights up, thanking him only for MC to refuse. Yumpa freezes and asks what he means. He repeats that he refuses. A little later, as he leaves the forest, he asks Nana for the facial analysis results. She loads them up, and Changsheng notes that while it can't detect lies perfectly, it was still smart to turn it on when he sensed something strange. Nana tells him Yumpa's face shifted a little, with a 45% chance he was lying. When Yumpa said he only wanted to be used to pass the third test, those facial signs got stronger, and the lie chance rose to 62%. The protagonist says he kept his guard up since it was still only a probability, but when Yumpa claimed they walked the same sword path, Changsheng remembered Yu Chan. That made the lie obvious.
If Yumpa really cared about that shared path, he wouldn't have gone to the Black Clan and the Sword Clan first while leaving out the Blade Clan. MC figures Yumpa must think he's an idiot. After that, Yumpa goes to Yu Chan and admits he turned him down after hearing the details of the third test. Yu Chan starts laughing, thinking the protagonist is more interesting than he expected. He got the information he wanted and left, just like Yu Chan knew he would. Yumpa wonders what to do next, and Yu Chan mocks him, asking if he plans to beg and crawl for MC's approval. Yumpa says that's not it. Yu Chan says the original plan would have been fun: join his group, then quit on test day and get him disqualified. Still, it'd be a waste if he lost that way. If he weren't a rival in the air battle, Yu Chan would have tried hard to recruit him. While Yu Chan keeps talking to himself, Yumpa drops to his knees and begs for one more chance, saying he still has other ideas. Yu Chan shuts him down.
He says it's over and tells Yumpa to stop this. Before it's too late, he should find a group or maybe become a leader himself. Yumpa is stunned and asks about their deal, but Yu Chan cuts him off, saying he still has other people to pick. Then he turns away and coldly tells Yumpa he has no use for dead weight like him. Yumpa is left shocked by how cruel that was and walks off in tears. Yu Chan, meanwhile, keeps thinking about how Cheon beat him with a single strike. The skill he showed a few days ago was nowhere near that level. Yu Chan hates how unclear it is and wonders if it was luck or real talent. Only time will tell. Meanwhile, our guy is still completely broken in the best way thanks to those nanomachines. The protagonist heads back to the hall, thinking about the 11 people he may need to gather. Nothing is confirmed yet, since the Academy hasn't announced it. But if it's true, he needs a plan. A few people from Group 8 come to mind, though not many, and there's no promise they'd follow him. He decides to finish training for the day and think more about it later in the dorms. Then he asks Nano if she finished analyzing the books they scanned in the library. She says yes, 55 beginner martial arts books from the first floor and 56 intermediate ones from the second. Cheon asks if she can build a hologram of a specific person by analyzing their energy and body movements, then make that hologram fight like the real person. Nano says yes, she can choose the target as an avatar and assign a martial art. He picks the 5 sword mastery arts, and for the person, he chooses his brother. The avatar immediately keeps calling him a plebeian, even in the simulation. Hana clearly hates that and tells it to start. The avatar attacks with the chosen art, but MC dodges easily and strikes his brother's neck, snapping it. Nano reports that the character died from a broken neck. Hana's shocked. 4 days ago, that same attack only pushed the guy back. Nano explains the avatar couldn't handle the full force of his master's strike. He starts wondering if his breakthrough let him the avatar and intermediate martial art probably won't change much. So he tells Nano to make 10 avatars and give each one a different intermediate martial art. She sets up the simulation with 10 Mugi-un copies. Their arts are Heavenly Raising Sword, Rotating Rain, Heartless Sword, Falling Massacre Sword, Fallen Fist, Horse Fist, Dark Raising, Emperor's End, and Great Sunlight Sword. Chana immediately wonders if he overdid it and tries to say 10 might be too much, but then all 10 Mugi-un copies start calling him plebeian, and now even the simulation is clowning him. Nano asks if she should lower the number. The protagonist says, no, just start. He'll kill them all. As they rush him, he stays focused and handles most of the attacks. He blocks the first wave, but the second comes in low and nearly catches him. Kion jumps away just in time. The problem is, he uses too much force and slams his head into the ceiling. He crashes, face first, and Nano instantly pauses the augmented reality. MC can only think about how much that hurt. The fake space made him forget how cramped the room really was. Then he sees the damage in the ceiling and knows he's in trouble. When the supervisor comes to check, he starts scolding Kion right away. He asks what happened to the roof, already getting a headache because of this kid, and says he warned him before. From now on, he is banned from that training room. He keeps apologizing, but the instructor tells him to follow. He leads Kion to another training area. It looks about half the size of the old room, but the door is much thicker. The supervisor says the protagonist will train there from now on, which totally confuses him. Then the man explains that if MC keeps using the regular room, he'll keep breaking walls. He wonders what kind of place this is, since it seems even better than the old one. The supervisor says it's a special training room, meant for people who reach expert level and pass the 4th test. The protagonist still doesn't get why he's being given access. The supervisor says Kion hasn't passed that test, obviously, but after causing yet another incident, the Academy approved letting him use it early. MC asks how he knows he reached expert level. The answer is simple. To break the hard walls in the solo training center, he must at least have that much energy. These new walls are even tougher, so no matter what he does, he shouldn't be able to break them. The supervisor tells him not to worry and just focus on training. He thanks him. With a room this solid, augmented reality should be no problem. He asks Nano for the time, and she says it's around 8 p.m., so he figures he still has time. He wonders if he should keep fighting the 10 avatars, but the only advanced martial artist model he has is too weak. So he asks Nano if she can make a fighter based on instructor Seo Mangu. She says yes, as long as only from the butterfly dance movements he showed in the infirmary. That gets Kion excited. Even if it's just one technique, a model of his teacher is far better than another Mugyun. Nano activates the augmented reality and asks him to pick the martial art. For now, he chooses only butterfly dance. A copy of his master appears before him. Even knowing it's fake, the protagonist feels way more pressure than he did against Mugyun. The avatar even acts a lot like the real man, so Kion tells Nano to mute him next time. He reminds himself that his master is one of the demon cult's top 10 martial artists. There's no way he can match that skill head-on, so he has to aim for an opening and strike first.
But his master quickly blocks the attack, and MC realizes it was way too easy to read. A heavy blow smashes into his jaw, and blood starts spilling right away. As he's sent flying, his master moves in for another hit. Then the avatar uses butterfly dance. Third technique, 7 butterfly dances. Kion gets hit 6 times and blasted away. He knew he wasn't a match for him, but getting crushed by a single technique is still hard to swallow. Now he truly sees the level of the demon cult's best martial artists. Nano asks if he wants to switch the avatar's martial art, but Kion says no, reset the fight. She asks again, and he makes it clear he wants another try. This time he says he'll use the absolute technique. Kion charges at him, but he quickly uses his fingers to stop Som's technique, and even the avatar seems surprised. Kion keeps jabbing with his fingers from every angle and realizes it's working. Then he uses the finishing move, 2 fingers aimed straight at Som's eyes. But Seom blocks with his swords and throws Kion back, with pain shoots through him, and he admits he still can't win, even with the absolute technique. Still, he notices wounds. There are sword injuries on the teacher's avatar. That means the final move did connect. It just wasn't deep enough. Kion figures that in pure sword technique, he may have already surpassed the avatar version of his teacher. But when it came to handling the key moment, the huge gap in experience still beat him. He realizes knowing the absolute technique alone won't let him beat a real master. Still, he has 4 years to clear the Demon Academy's 6 tests. So, in those 4 years, he plans to surpass Seob, starting with his avatar training. 4 days later, they head to the martial training hall. There, all the instructors are waiting for them. The boy is still frustrated. He gave it everything he had, and the best result he got was a draw against 10 Mojian avatars. Then Myung shouts, asking if they enjoyed their 4-day break. They answer yes. Myung says it's time to explain the 3rd test, just like announced 4 days ago, and hand out the Black Dragon medicinal pills. For the 3rd test, teams of 12 will have to perform a formation. That leaves everyone confused. The proto realizes the intel was true. Myung explains that to join a 12-man formation, the minimum requirement is advanced martial proficiency. Then he hands each of them a book. It covers the basics of the demon sword formation, the art the main bloodline takes pride in, and the advanced secret art called the 7 demon swords. He says that if they absorb today's pills and train hard to learn the 7 demon swords, reaching advanced proficiency should be possible. The proto thinks that doesn't sound too hard. But then Myung announces the 3rd test is only 27 days away. Each group will have to defeat the instructors standing in front of them. Myung calls it simple, but no one likes the idea. The instructors are specialists. Some cadets say they heard a few of them are even at master level. They already thought this was hard. Fighting fellow cadets would have been way easier. Now they're supposed to beat people with real combat experience? The proto sees everything is unfolding just like Myung said. So the only thing left is naming the group leaders. Myung says this test will be completely different from the second one. This time, they're on their own. They have to gather members and learn the formation themselves. After explaining how the group leaders will be chosen, they hand out the secret manuals and pills, then prepare to dismiss everyone. But Seyoon is confused. He thought the leaders would be picked by rank. Myung points to the instructors in front of them and says they can all see their names. Whoever steals an instructor's yellow badge within 7 days will become a group leader. Everyone is shocked. They have to rob the instructors. Then they realize something worse. If no one can take a badge, there will be fewer groups, which means fewer students can stay. There are 207 cadets total, so that makes 17 groups of 12, with 3 students cut right away. And before they even beat the instructors in the sword formation test, they first have to steal their badges. Myung tells them not to overthink it. Instructors with yellow badges won't use their special arts, only the 7 demon swords. The cadets protest that it changes nothing. A specialist is still a specialist, even using advanced martial arts alone. Now the Proto sees their real goal: to counter the 7 demon swords in such a short time. They'll need a deep understanding of every move. This wasn't just made harder for fun. 7 days is nowhere near enough to learn how to shut down the 7 demon swords. They did this on purpose, to push everyone into panic. Myung thinks the confusion is about what he expected and wonders if he should scare them a little more. So he says they all have 7 days, but asks if any cadet wants to challenge them right now. Nobody says a word. Myung thought at least one person would step up. He says that with enough guts and skill, it'd be a great way to get noticed, though losing would do the exact opposite. He starts thinking no one here has the nerve. Then someone raises a hand. He recognizes him as the leader of Group 1, Myung, a candidate to become Vice Lord of the Black Clan. The Proto raises his hand too, ready to go. Then he notices another volunteer, the guy who beat the Poison Clan candidate, Chaeon Yoan Sung. That's Baek Ji. Myung says 2 men he didn't expect have stepped forward. Things are about to get interesting. Yo Chang glances to the side. The Proto realizes the man beside him became leader of Group 12 instead of the protagonist, Yoan Sung. From here, he looks strong. Myung says he likes the look in their eyes and asks the instructors which one wants to entertain them. He calls out the instructors for Groups 1, 8, and 12, reminding them he told them not to go near his cadets. Then, the official martial instructor, Ho Jin Chang, steps forward. That catches him off guard. As Ho Jin Chang walks out, Pyong thinks there's no need for him to volunteer if this man is handling it. From that point on, he thinks the Proto better watch himself, because no matter who he faces, no one will go easy on him. Myung guesses they're trying to stop the cadets from taking leader spots too easily. Still, with Jin Chang involved, it won't be too harsh or too wild. Then he suggests they start with the leader of Group 1, Cadet Number 1. Jin Chang moves to face the boy, but Yo Song suddenly shouts, asking the director for permission. Jin Chang is offended. How dare he step in when he knows he has his eye on that cadet? Furious, he glares at him. Yo Song apologizes to his senior, saying he knew Jin Chang wouldn't hold back. He believes Myung is the best choice for the next Vice Lord, and he doesn't want to see him humiliated here. But then Jin Chang raises his hand again and says he'll handle Cadet 18 instead. Myung thinks he never should have tested Jin Chang's patience. Now his cadet is really in trouble. And he approves. Myung had already planned to face the Proto anyway, so now he'll take the prize himself. Soon the two stand face to face. The Proto tells Nano not to miss even a second. Myung tells them to begin. Myung rushes in hard with the cloud palm flow. The supervisor gets excited. That palm art is one of the top 3 in the main bloodline,
a Black Clan specialty alongside the great black demon sword. It lives up to the rumors. Still, it's a shame Myung has to use the 7 demon swords instead of his own poison arts. But the boy easily breaks through the attack. The proto notices something odd.
Those movements feel strangely familiar. Myung suddenly changes his stance. He pulls one leg back, shifts his arms, and unleashes attack after attack at the instructor. The instructor is impressed. Even with his attacks being blocked, the boy never panics. From the force in those palm strikes, he can tell Myung has reached specialist level, and his understanding of technique is far beyond a normal cadet's. He says that in terms of martial skill, Myung is already at elder level. So the instructor uses the second and third forms of the 7 demon swords and decides to stop treating him like an ordinary cadet. Myung is puzzled. The black cloud palm flow is a higher grade art, yet his attacks keep getting shut down. He starts to doubt this is just advanced martial arts. The proto can't believe it. The completed techniques may look different, but the movement paths are exactly the same as the sword marks left in the gender. The only difference is that the 7 demon swords has just 12 movements, half of the 24 in the destructive sword technique. He can't be sure yet, but he thinks the demon sword may be what left those sword marks. The fierce fight keeps going. Then the boy and the specialist clash head-on, and both get knocked back. Myung realizes the other man is a specialist too, maybe slightly more skilled. Since he can block palm techniques using only advanced martial arts, he must have far more combat experience. No wonder he's an instructor. Myung says that if he can't close the distance soon, he'll be at an even bigger disadvantage. Seeing no other choice, he shifts forms. One hand forward, the other behind. The specialist notices right away. The boy must be planning to finish the fight with his strongest move, so he gathers all his energy to block it. Myung charges. He comes in with another palm strike. The specialist braces himself. Sure, the attack will come from the right. He gets ready to stop it, but Myung drops lower, plants a knee, changes the angle, and attacks with his left hand instead. That completely breaks the stance. He realizes it's the same pattern as before, just reversed. It's hard to deal with. He tries to stop the left hand with his right, but Myung switches again and strikes with the right this time, hitting the specialist's shoulder. The man drops to the ground hurt, while the boy stays calm. Everyone erupts because he beat that same instructor. They even notice he used an energy blade, proof he's already reached specialist level. Now they're convinced the young master of the Black Clan is the closest one to becoming Vice Lord. Myung remembers the secret art, left sword, left palm. They let someone use 2 special techniques while switching sides freely. That skill made Myung go Wang Hole of the Black Clan, the cult's second strongest fighter. He was supposed to be the only one who mastered it, so seeing this boy use something like it shocks him. The kid really is a genius. The specialist quickly makes his move. He pulls the golden seal from his chest and hands it over. The boy has earned the right to become a group leader in the 3rd test, and Myung thanks him. The boy starts thinking about the badges. Something about the way they explained it bothers him, and he wonders if one person can only get 1 badge. Still, he steps in front of the next specialist. He decides to stop overthinking it. What happens here will shape his future, and he has to prove himself in front of everyone. The instructor is impressed. Even while facing a specialist head-on, the boy looks calm and sure of himself instead of scared. Honestly, the instructor is surprised. He never thought this kid would even clear the first test, but now he decides it's time to end the boy's lucky run. Activating his energy blade, he says he'll crush him in front of everyone. I'm really hoping the protagonist uses that crazy strength of his. Even in the worst case, maybe he can at least break a leg. The boy feels the killing intent coming off the instructor,
who recognizes the butterfly dance and tells him to make the first move. The protagonist knows he may have reached specialist-level skill, but his internal energy still falls short of a real specialist's. Letting him strike first only proves the instructor is looking down on him. With the 10 stars defensive art, the instructor plans to finish this in one blow. The specialist is caught off guard as the protagonist charges in. His hand is wide open, aiming to crush him with pure force. The instructor realizes the boy is far too fast, and the protagonist slams his shoulder with a brutal hit.
The specialist is thrown back by overwhelming power. Now he starts getting pushed back, and the specialist thinks that even after blocking with the 7 stars defense, being forced back 5 steps means the boy has solid internal energy, but his outer strength is monstrous. The protagonist realizes this won't be an easy win, so he pushes even harder. The specialist starts shaking under the pressure of that palm and realizes the boy is humiliating him. He adds more power to his movements, forcing the protagonist's hand back for a moment and making him step away. The specialist tells himself the boy's energy still isn't on a true specialist level and sneers, thinking the brat can run now. He attacks with the 4th and 6th forms of the 7 demon swords, but the protagonist thinks he can still read it. Even without Nano's help, he can tell the forms are stable, and compared to the sword traces in the sapphire, this is much easier. He dodges by simply lowering his body, slipping in close and almost tripping the instructor. The man thinks the boy is a fool for getting that close, and prepares to finish him with his 2nd technique. But then Xion instantly shatters that plan and sends him flying. Mugor can't believe it. MC just broke the 7 demon swords with basic butterfly dance movements alone. The instructor grows even more furious, thinking that getting stalled by a little brat's techniques is humiliation he won't accept. Since it's come to this, he decides to use the 10 stars defense to knock him out with an internal injury. My Inch notices right away that he's trying to use a lethal move, and thinks the idiot has lost his mind. The protagonist has no choice but to take it head-on with his body. Pain tears through him. He coughs up blood and realizes his internal energy is being disrupted. Nano warns that forced energy is damaging his organs. He immediately asks for her help. She quickly heals the injured organs. He refuses to fall, while Nano keeps the regeneration going non-stop. And the protagonist keeps defending through the storm of attacks, almost like he's gone berserk. The specialist can't understand it. He's sure the boy is taking internal damage. Fear starts creeping in. Why isn't this kid going down? The more nervous he gets, the more his moves start slipping. The protagonist instantly drives in his right hand through that opening. The specialist thinks his energy armor will hold, but the blow is so strong it shatters several ribs. The moment they break, blood sprays everywhere. Everyone is stunned by how brutal that was. Before collapsing, the specialist grabs onto the boy. He calls him a monster. Jian stays on his feet, panting, covered in blood, with a terrifying look in his eyes. The whole place falls silent as they stare. Jian realizes Yun Pa wasn't exaggerating. This boy could become a serious problem. Ma Ying thinks about the 7 demon swords created by the legendary demon sword. Its countless combinations are supposed to be incredibly hard to break, yet Qian just did it. That's beyond mere talent. He's a martial genius. Ma Ying regrets ever letting that cursed drunk go, then calls for the director and says they need to take the blood-covered instructor to the infirmary. His ribs are broken, and 3 other bones are fractured too. That thought makes Ma Ying uneasy. He suddenly remembers he forgot to warn the instructors that Cadet 7 had punched through reinforced walls. If this man had known, he probably wouldn't have lost so badly. They tell him to get the instructor moved at once, and finally the boy becomes a leader. The instructors can only think about how the cadets will start seeing them as weak after losing twice. Jing Shen looks back at all of them. He realizes talent and skill can let the next generation surpass their teachers. Yet, instead of being proud, these men are worried about protecting themselves. Still, he feels he's in no place to judge them. He let the moment sway him and pick Cadet 18 without noticing someone this gifted. Now he has another regret. Ma Ying then announces the final duel. Jing Shen will face Baik Ji. The other instructors hope Jing Shen can save their pride. One says he can't imagine Jing Shen losing, and another agrees he's no ordinary instructor. He's their senior officer. The cadets wonder if Baik can actually win. There's no rule against it, and since he volunteered, maybe he's hiding his strength like Cadet 7 did. Baik says he'll be the opponent and asks Jing Shen to honor him with his guidance. Jing Shen thinks the cadet is humble and says they should both give it their best. Then the two face each other. Jing Shen releases his aura across his whole body, putting huge pressure on the boy. Baik feels crushed by that presence and wonders if this is really the same man who was smiling a second ago. Even so, he decides he won't hold back and rushes in, trying to do all he can. The protagonist notices it's a kicking style and watches closely with Nano, happy to have another strong fighter to study. He says watching Mifeng use different techniques with both hands was really interesting, and that was only a small part of what he knows. He isn't sure he's analyzed it correctly yet, but it should still help. If he has to fight him later, it'll be worth it. Baik opens with that kicking art, aiming at 2 points at once. Jing Shen dodges it with ease. Baik realizes he avoided everything just by moving his upper body. Then Jing Shen quickly shifts his stance and tells the boy that his back foot is exposed. He goes straight for Baik's foot, but Baik steps on Jing Shen's hand, spins through the air, and tries to launch another of his techniques, surprising Jing Shen. He lands a kick aimed right at Jing Shen's face, but the senior instructor isn't about to let that hit connect. He forms a Kyo blade and pierces Baik's foot, sending him crashing back, his foot left with a huge hole. Baik realizes that for Jing Shen to form a Kyo blade that fast, he must be a master. He used only a simple sword motion. He hasn't even touched the 7 demon swords yet. Jing Shen points out that Baik is a kicking specialist, but now he can't use his right foot, and asks what he plans to do. Baik can tell this man is far stronger than the earlier instructors. Even while limping, Baik gets back up, plants his foot, and steadies his stance. He knows the gap in skill is huge, but he still has to try and end this with one technique. Jing Shen thinks the boy has strong fighting spirit. Baik puts weight on his injured leg anyway, blood still spilling, and charges Jing Shen again, trying once more to land his kicking technique. Jing Shen thinks that even hurt, the boy won't back down. Youth really is something. But at the last second, Baik cancels the kick. Jing Shen was ready to stop and drops low with a feint, then attacks from below. Jing Shen realizes the boy is really coming at him even with that injured leg, and that Baik also has specialist-level skill. But when Baik strikes upward with both legs, Jing Shen is already gone. Only an afterimage remains. Baik realizes he fell for it. Jing Shen crouches right in front of his face and tells him he wasn't bad, but that's as far as he goes. Then he lands a direct blow to the boy's center and sends him flying with a single attack. So he goes down hard. Everyone can tell he lost. After only a few exchanges, they realize beating an instructor is no joke, and that cadets 1 and 7 really are monsters. Bai Lu Ku knows it's over as blood pours out. If the keyblade hadn't been pulled back, it would have gone through his heart. Xian figures the kid was just unlucky. If the instructor hadn't been a master, Bai Luke might have had a chance. He also gets the feeling the other instructors are glad he lost. Jing Shen still gives him advice. If he links the feint and the real attack more smoothly, he'll fool people a lot better. He says he wants to see how far Boat can grow. Even in bad shape, Boat thanks his master for the lesson. Then he limps back to the other cadets, shaking. Xian notices right away that he's in rough condition. Boat is pale and his neck is red. He tells Nana to analyze Cadet 18 and have the results ready so he can check them after the third test is announced. Meanwhile, they explain the third test. Each cadet will get one wooden sword, and they need to be careful not to break it. Anyone who gets a badge within 7 days can become a group leader. They ask if everyone understands, but nobody answers with much confidence. The protagonist decides he should take the medicine pill first. After that, there's something else he wants to check, but then he gets startled. Several cadets stop right in front of him. One of them stares straight into the boy's eye, and Bong asks what they should say to their sovereign. 4 others stand beside him like guards around the protagonist. He looks completely thrown off by Bong calling him my sovereign. The night before, in the dorm, some cadets had gone to Bong and said they liked the idea that this boy might really change things. Still, they asked if this wasn't a dangerous bet. Weren't the 6 great clans something to fear? Bong admits he is afraid. But if people from small clans are going to be looked down on forever, then he's willing to risk it. If it's for his sovereign, maybe people like them can finally have hope. That fires the others up. They ask if Bong truly trusts him, and when he says yes, they make up their minds too. They say they're in this together.
Bong, Hiwai, Yu Woon, and De Myung swear loyalty to their sovereign. Him Yu Woon emplace themselves in his hands. So Bong speaks to him, but the protagonist tells him it's fine. There's nothing to worry about. Then the tallest one steps forward and introduces himself as One Hu. He gets straight to the point. He wants to join the protagonist group. That catches him by surprise. His followers are thrilled. The faster they gather members, the more time they'll have to train. But since they only need 7, 9 people will have to be turned away. One who says he's from the Black Fist clan, an elite clan, and he's already at the advanced level. He insists he won't hold them back. Brak Yun says he's intermediate right now, but once he takes the pill, he'll reach advanced level 2. He promises he won't be a burden. Everyone starts trying to move closer, and some get jealous. 5 of the 16 there are from which means 11 people are fighting for just 2 spots.
No wonder they hate elite clans. The protagonist thanks them for asking to join, but says he needs to make one thing clear first. He's not looking for people just to pass the third test. That shocks everyone. He says he wants people who'll stay with him after they leave the academy, through the hard road to the main line. Through the worst times and the best. That kind of loyalty is a lot to ask, and the ones with weak resolve start wondering if they should back out. They don't want to get caught in a war between. The protagonist expected that fear. He says he doesn't care whether they're from small clans or elite ones. If they truly want to follow him, that's enough. By the end of his journey, their current status won't matter. Then he says he'll change the 6 foundations of the main line. That sets everyone off. They wonder if he's serious. He may be a candidate, but this sounds less like ambition and more like a declaration of war. Some decide they'd better wait for another leader. The protagonist asks them to stand beside him and become part of a new foundation of the demonic cult. That's what he, Exian, and Chen Yao won't want from their him. A few hesitate, then apologize. They only wanted a leader to help them pass the third test. They say it's a shame. They wanted to join him, but this wasn't what they signed up for. So, some of them leave, and Bong thinks this is bad. Maybe all that should have been said after they were accepted. But then he notices some stayed. Chen Yao won. Wo, Min, and Ojong still look fully committed. They tell the protagonist they've watched the other candidates too, but something about him feels different.
He warns them the path he described is dangerous enough to get them all Axion. To be honest, he also wants to fight back. The protagonist isn't surprised since he's from an elite clan. He could have chosen a stronger candidate. But Chen Yao won, who says that, like any martial artist, he dreams of power and glory.
Hearing that ambition made him want to follow the boy. Then he drops to one knee before the protagonist and swears loyalty. He says he may have doubts, but he'll never kneel to anyone else. One of the future Demon King's swords, the first sword, the Fist MC, Yu-Won who asks to serve as his first sword. Wo, Min, and Zhang also swear loyalty to the boy. The protagonist starts to feel like things are finally moving. He thanks all of them. But Bong quickly says, first sword or not, he's still the sovereign's first follower. Wen Shu just smiles at that. Later, at the entrance to the Demonic Academy Training Center, he tells everyone to absorb the pills and memorize the full text of the 7 demon swords. They ask if memorizing the text is enough, and he says no. Starting tomorrow, they'll train together, and he'll personally check their moves and techniques. That convinces them they chose the right sovereign. Being looked after like this feels incredible. The protagonist, on the other hand, is copying the only master he ever had. He figures he'll just beat the lessons into them until they learn. Same way his teacher did. He tells them to head to their training rooms. They'll meet around 10 after taking the pills. Then Wen Shu walks over and asks if he can say something. He says he may be overthinking it, but from now on, the boy should always have at least one follower with him. He's worried because of the order to take instructor's badges. That makes the protagonist stop and think. The director said anyone who got a badge in 7 days would become leader. Maybe they don't actually have to beat an instructor. Maybe they can steal badges from other cadets too. Wen Shu agrees. Since his sovereign has fewer men than the kid from the Black Clan, he could become a target. It wouldn't hurt to be careful. Qian thanks him for the warning, and Wen Shu says that's only natural since he swore to serve him. Then he says he'll use the room near his, but the protagonist explains that he can't train there for certain reasons. He's using a different place. Wen Shu is shocked and asks if that isn't the center meant for specialists. That only makes him admire Qian even more. He says he'll work hard enough to reach specialist level and train in the same center. The boy's excitement even surprises him. Inside, after taking the pill, he manages to form a keel sword. Now he understands what being a true specialist feels like. Having over 60 years of keel, he says that if he pours this into a blade, he should be able to make a strong keel weapon. He thanks Nana for her help, saying this was possible because of her. And she proudly says that's right. So he asks if humility doesn't exist in the future, and she says it does. She just doesn't know how to use it. Then he tells Nana to show him the recording of Bakji's fight. She projects the video into his vision and augmented reality. He tells her to pause the video and zoom in on Bakji, closer still to the neck and face. She does, and he notices the pale face, the red eyes, and the red marks on the neck. Those definitely shouldn't be there. And he gets more and more irritated. Sometime later, an instructor starts another match. This time, it's against Hum, and he realizes that guy has already gone beyond normal cadet skill. He's a specialist too, which means he can't beat him with only the 7 demon swords. He notices this boy isn't completely shutting down moves like Cadet 7 did, but he's taking advantage of the blind spots in the techniques. The instructor admits he was doubtful since the kid came in so confident after only 4 hours. But analyzing the 7 swords that fast makes him a genius on the level of the other 2, the Blade Clan candidate, Cadet 5 Yucha. And he says there's no point dragging the duel out. They can stop here. The boy realizes what that means. That means he's giving up his badge. He can't hide how happy he is. He actually pulled it off. Then he starts wondering who the next target will be. Meanwhile, Becky stays calm, just sitting there and eating. Then Kaiwan walks over. He says he liked Becky's earlier match against the instructor. Becky taps his chopsticks down and tells him he's eating, so don't bother him. Kind thinks this guy is rude as hell, but decides to get straight to the point. He says Becky's skills impressed him since he seems to be a new specialist and looks like he wants to lead a group. Kaiwan asks if he wants something bigger. Becky keeps eating like he doesn't care at all. That only makes Kyung even madder. Still, he forces himself to stay calm. Getting angry now would ruin his plan to gather talented people, so he tells Becky to think it over. It could be a great chance. Becky says this is the second time. He remembers that Blade Clan guy acting all confident and asking him to be his right-hand man, and that pisses him off even more. He says he honestly doesn't want to lead anybody or chase some bigger title. He just doesn't want to stand under anyone. His goal is to get stronger. Then someone else comes up and politely asks if they can talk, apologizing for interrupting his meal. Baek-giri thinks, not again, and tells him to get lost. But Chi-won says if he doesn't speak now, Baek-giri might die later. That makes him stop. He asks what he's talking about, then realizes it's him. Baek-giri says Chi-won isn't even one of the 6 clan candidates, yet somehow he's more arrogant than the last 2. Does he really think this is how you recruit someone? The protagonist says he's got the wrong idea. Baek-giri snaps back. Wrong idea? He comes over sounding like then calls it a misunderstanding. MC says that's not what he meant. Then he gets straight to it. Baek-giri looks like he's been poisoned. Baek-giri stares at him like, what the hell? He explains that during the duel his face looked pale and there were red spots on his neck. That gets into Baek-giri's head. He starts thinking about poison, but tells himself that can't be right. He's been careful with Jong-soon ever since joining Group 12. Even so, he asks why the protagonist is telling him this, and even if he was poisoned, why should that matter to the protagonist?